It's time for Twit This Week in Tech. Patrick Norton is here. Merlin Mann is here. Tweney's here. Harry McCracken is here. We're going to talk about the WWDC announcements, whether Apple Music can make it, whether it needs to make it. We'll also talk about that big break-in at the Office of Personnel Management and robots. It's all coming up next on Twit.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for This Week in Tech is provided by CacheFly at CacheFly.com. This is Twit, This Week in Tech, episode 514, recorded Sunday, June 14th, 2015. Enter my candy foyer. This Week in Tech is brought to you by Audible.com. Sign up for the Platinum Plan and get 2 free books. Go to audible.com/twit2. And don't forget to follow Audible on Twitter. User ID audible_com. And by lynda.com, the online learning platform with over 3,000 on-demand video courses to help you strengthen your business, technology, and creative skills. For a free 10-day trial, visit lynda.com/twit2. That's lynda.com/TWIT and the number 2. And by Braintree. If you're working on a mobile app and searching for a simple payment solution, check out Braintree. With one easy integration, you can offer your customers every way to pay, period. To learn more and for your first $50,000 in transactions, fee-free, go to BraintreePayments.com/twit. And by Stamps.com. Start using your time more effectively with Stamps.com. Use Stamps.com to buy and print real U.S. postage the instant you need it right from your desk. For our special offer, go to Stamps.com right now. Click on the microphone and enter TWIT. That's Stamps.com. Enter TWIT. It's time for This Week in Tech, the show where we cover the week's tech news with some of the best people in the biz. And I have to say, I'm kind of blown away. This panel is going to be way too good. Way too good. Hey, Harry McCracken, Technologizer guy. Nice to see you.
Great to be here.
Welcome, fastcompany.com.
Mm-hmm.
And hey, Patrick Norton, you were here yesterday.
I was.
And you came back.
I did.
I love that.
Thank you.
Patrick, of course, is at thetechthing.com, TEKTHING.com.
Yes, I am.
And if you didn't see yesterday's The New Screensavers, you were great on that. It was fun doing that with you
Thank
again.
you.
It's kind of like old times.
I should have kept my pants on, though. That's
Just
a joke,
like old
people.
times. Where's your kilt?
Somewhere.
Do you still have kilts?
Yes.
Now that you're a father?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because I think you should wear a kilt next time.
We'll talk about it.
I like the kilts.
We'll see if I fit
I'll tell
in
you
the
what,
kilt.
if you wear it, I'll wear it. You're famous for the kilts and the sledgehammer.
Yes.
You have to carry that burden with you till your day you die.
Just looking forward to the day my oldest son finds that out.
Dylan Tweney is also here. He is editor-at-large at Venture Beat, formerly of Wired. It's good to see you, Dylan.
It's great to be here.
Back from camping with the Cub Scouts. I presume you have a Cub Scout.
Yes, there is actually a Cub Scout in my family.
Good. You're not like the creepy neighbor that volunteers. You actually have a Cub Scout. That's
Yes.
nice. I was
I'm
in Cub
legit.
Scouts. I'll have to find that picture of me doing the little Cub Scout salute. And lo and behold, look at this. Hot dogs, ladies, you bet. Merlin Mann is back.
Hi, Leo. How are you?
Apparently, he does nothing but tweet.
Me?
Yeah.
Well, I was a
all-
Cub Scout, too. I was a permanent Bobcat. I was always a Bobcat.
Love to see you. Hey, it's great that you guys did a revival of You Look Nice today.
Yeah, it was super fun. It's I
neat.
miss those guys. They're getting pretty old, though. You know.
Lonely Sandwich,
Yep.
Adam
Scott
Lissagore, and Scott, who used to work at the fruit company.
Yeah, the paper company. He used to have
Paper
a high
company.
position there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been a crazy week here. There's just been so much going on for the last week around WWDC, and there's so many other events, related, different conferences, and it's been a great week.
Well, we have a lot to talk about, that's for sure. Let's start with Monday and WWDC, the Worldwide Developers Conference. Apple had, in my opinion, kind of a fragmented talk. Lots of different stuff. Of course, you're talking to developers. Although it's a little weird because this is one of only 3 kind of big public events that Apple has, so it can't just be for developers. People are paying attention, as we were. They did announce iOS 9, which will come out this fall, and some new features there. They announced Mac OS 10, 10.11 El Capitan. Yes, mon capitaine. Mon capitaine would have been better.
I like that.
Mon capitaine. And they talked to, and they, for the first time, named the operating system for the Apple Watch. It's called watchOS. Harry, your thoughts?
Well, if you're expecting surprises or great leaps forward, it was a disappointment, partially because almost everything was leaked. Yeah. I think in terms of useful stuff that might make your life better, it was not a bad event. It was pretty dense with new features on the various platforms. The watchOS stuff means that for the first time, Apple Watches will actually be able to run apps, which is a big deal.
To me, at this point, the Apple Watch to me is kind of a gadget that doesn't have a whole lot of utility. Although I talked to a blind guy on the radio show who said, for the blind community, this is great because it's a talking watch. You could turn on voiceover, it'll talk. Somebody said I was sitting next to a guy on the bus. He asked his watch, "Where are we now? What stop is this?" And the watch told him. So there's a lot of value for that. But for normal, I want to say normal, but for the vast majority of us, it's just a gadget.
I think it will get way better quite quickly once developers have access to stuff like the digital crown and all the sensors. That was great. The other thing that I thought was interesting personally was the iPad is looking more and more like a PC operating system.
Yes.
People have been asking for multiple apps on screen at once. You're finally getting that, and I think it is not unreasonable to assume that we will see future devices running iOS that start to look a little bit more like a PC, whether it's a larger screen.
Merlin, do you like that idea, the ability to do two windows on an iPad?
Yeah, I do. I have an iPad Air 2, and as I sit here today, I think that maybe next to my SE30 I had in the early 90s, it might be my favorite Apple device ever. I mean, I love my iPhone, but the iPad Air 2, you really get the power of what that thing can do. And I'm really looking forward. In fact, I'm not really one of those guys who runs around doing betas anymore, but like even just watching the keynote and seeing the picture-in-picture, I immediately feel like an animal having to watch something on YouTube, in a dedicated screen. And it feels like the 1930s. I'm like, come on, I can't get this fast enough. But no, I think it's really exciting. I think the OS X stability and the iOS announcements were, for me, the two most interesting things.
Isn't there a risk, Dylan, though, of making the iPad too complicated?
Yeah, I was just thinking that. I mean, on the one hand, you've got features like the split screen view, which, Windows has had for years, right? And Apple's like, hey, look, we invented you can look at two apps at one time.
Wow.
And the rest of the world is like, uh-huh.
You mean like on my Note 4? Oh.
Well, Apple has a user base on tablets. It's a little larger.
But the thing is, like, one of the things I think that is appealing about the iPad and the whole tablet interface is that it's very focused. It's like one thing at a time. And, they have up till now struck a very good balance between that sort of extreme simplicity and the sort of usability that engenders. I just wonder, like, as it gets more and more PC-like, is it going to become more PC-like in usability too?
Yeah. Is it, as Neil deGrasse Tyson said, a watershed moment in civilization?
So
what happened there?
He was actually in a video. So Neil deGrasse Tyson, right? World famous astrophysicist, host of Cosmos, director of the Hayden Planetarium in New York. Like, he's an awesome guy. He's a hero to many of us, right?
Yeah.
But he had a little cameo in a video about the App Store where he said apps plus hardware is apps plus handheld hardware is a watershed moment in civilization.
When Neil says it, though, you go, yeah, I think he's right.
Well, right. But I was like, wait a minute. Did he really just say that about the App Store? So I called him up and asked him about that.
Yeah.
And he yelled at me for like 20 minutes.
What?
He was like, listen to my words. I did not say the App Store. I said handheld devices plus apps. He never mentioned Apple and he never mentioned the App Store. And it turns out that Apple interviewed him for like 45 minutes. He spent the entire time raving about hardware in general and like the kind of sensors that are in smartphones and how that enables people to be scientists and connected to the internet, gives you all this information. And like the 1 second that he mentions the App Store, that's the clip that they pull out and put into their video about the App Store. So it sounds like he's saying the App Store is a watershed moment, but he really meant, this whole like tiny computer and all of the internet in the palm of your hand is a watershed moment.
Do you think he yelled at Apple like he yelled at you?
I hope so. They paid him, he told me. So he probably cashed the check and like shook his head and went his way. But he was real concerned that we get that right.
And this, my friends, is why, even if Apple asked, I wouldn't accept a check for talking to them on camera about the App Store. Not that they've ever asked.
It reminded me of an event I went to long ago that Intel put on for the Centrino chip, which they hired Malcolm Gladwell for. And Malcolm Gladwell said that maybe Centrino will be a tipping point for the world
Lord.
because it puts Wi-Fi on the same platform as the CPU.
At least he got a plug-in for the book. That's what Neil missed. In the cosmos, this is a watershed moment. Then maybe it'd be worth it.
No, there's also the side problem. Anytime Apple writes a check,
Yeah.
they only give you 70%.
It actually was a decent presentation. They had a lot. I don't know why they spent so much time. They do this. They're wanting to do this on the updated Notepad app. Like that's a big deal. I remember they did that with a card store. Remember they had a card app? And they spent like 10 minutes talking about it, and then they killed it like a year later. So they want to do that. I guess they get excited. This is going to be a big deal. You're going to have a to-do list in your Notepad, whatever. But then the thing really went off the rails. Jimmy Iovine walks out, and I feel like it's a New Jersey moment between Eddie Q and Jimmy Iovine. I feel like the East Coast is LBI is being represented, right?
Oh, boy.
Eddie was dancing in his pink shirt to some Cuban music. He was having a good time.
I actually rolled my sleeves up just like him. Only one, right? You don't want to go too far, and I opened an extra button just in honor of him. You were there, right?
I was
Harry?
there in person on the premises.
What's the feeling in the room when Iovine? Were people worried like that he was kind of losing it, or?
Well, I think Apple events these days are almost more fun than the old days, just because more weird stuff goes on, and you can see people.
Weird stuff.
You can see people actually having fun on stage. But
Right.
and they had who knows how many people trying to explain Apple Music.
Drake came out,
and none of them actually succeeded. I know that Apple Music is an upgrade to Beats Music, which is not a bad app.
Yeah.
And I know that Apple is doing a radio station, and I know that they're saying that human curation is better than an algorithm. But it's still not clear how Apple Music is going to come into this category that is crowded with streaming music apps and be something all that compelling.
Well,
the pricing is good. That's almost the thing that I found to be
The
most
family
interesting.
plan.
Yeah. Right.
But you know that Spotify and everybody else are going to come up with a similar $15.99 for 6 people plan. I mean, why wouldn't they? Music industry says yes to Apple. They're going to do the same thing. In fact, Spotify, there it is on The Verge. I don't know if The Verge, this is not a scoop exactly because they didn't get confirmation, but they say the Spotify does plan to match that.
They pretty much have to.
well,
Right.
the Spotify also just
how could
raised.
they not?
Right.
Yeah, they raised like $500 million. It's interesting also, as this is going on, all of the lawsuits are starting to come out about whether or not, or the investigations about whether or not Apple, was coercing music labels into trying to remove free streaming on other platforms. Apple's spending money. Apple's so desperate to get into this market. I don't think it was as tone deaf as the title announcement. Because there was something sad about seeing some of the
With
richest.
Jay-Z brought all these people out.
We're not making enough money off of streaming music. Then your lawyers should have done a better job with the record
Then they signed a
companies.
weird document, which nobody told them what it was, but they all signed it for some reason. And Lady Madonna, I don't know why I call her Lady Madonna. Lady Madonna put her foot up on the table while she signed it. Or was that Lady Gaga? I don't know. One of them did that. That was weird. But this reminded me, this thing at the end of the normal Apple event did remind me a little bit of a Samsung event, kind of singing and dancing. And there she is. What is that all about? Thank you, Madonna. Interesting point of view from Pando Daily. David Holmes writing a Pando Daily. He says, is Spotify doomed because of Apple Music? No, Spotify's been doomed from the start. We kind of focus on can Apple Music beat Spotify, but the real question is there a future at all for these streaming apps? Because the music industry hates them, right? You think it's the music industry that artists should hate the music industry
I don't
instead
know.
of?
There's
But you
some
think
nasty.
they're getting a better deal from Apple than they got from? I mean, it just doesn't. The economics don't add up. If you're paying $10 a month, Apple's not going to have that much more to give the artists than Spotify is.
Well,
I don't
Apple
see
can
how that
spend
pencils
more
out.
money. I mean, if they want to, I mean, they
could just subsidize it.
Well, yeah, I mean, this would be like a classic Procter and Gamble movement. We're going to go in, make the cheapest detergent on the planet. We're going to put everybody else out of business. Then we're going to put a premium brand in and eliminate the cheap detergent. I mean, that was kind of their thing for decades. But Apple could be doing that, or maybe Apple's just desperate to stay relevant.
There's this funny scenario that the music industry finally met somebody that was more of a shark than they were. There's a quote in this Panda Daily story from an unnamed music industry source. Actually, it's from The Verge. All the way up to Tim Cook, these guys is cutthroat. But when Jimmy Iovine takes the stage, he seems a little more street smart, little more tough. Maybe that's just his persona. He, from the very beginning of Beats, but long before Apple came along, said, "We got the thing that's going to save the music industry or streaming music is human curation."
Right. It'll be interesting to see how well it scales. It makes a lot of sense if you're talking about a few songs and a fairly small number of people. But if they're doing this on Apple's scale and they're trying to appeal to people with all sorts of different tastes in music, how many human curators do they need to do that? And how do they keep it interesting a year from now? Because the playlists I like now, I won't care about a year from now.
I mean, it's not like human curation is untried. We still have FM radio, and that's curated.
That's what cracked me up. Apple announced this as Beats One 24/7 global radio station. As if this was an innovation. Don't we have radio?
Denial is a powerful force in the universe.
It's like Silicon Valley. I invented radio on the internet.
My theory is that there is still a reality distortion field at Apple, but it only applies within the executive suite.
They're the only ones fooled. Merlin, do you listen to you seem like a music guy, like you like music.
I am.
What do you use?
Yeah, I really like iTunes Match. That's been good to me, and I've subscribed to Beats for some time.
Oh, really? So do you prefer it to any of the other choices?
I mean, I don't know. There's a time when I've tried the other ones. I tried Spotify for a while. I just Beats made sense to me. I like the way it works. I wish it would keep me logged in longer. Yeah. I don't have that much. I don't know that much about the streaming music business, but I have a theory that I share with a few other people that it kind of feels like, I don't know. I felt like the first 2/3 or however long of this was a pretty good show. I mean, there was not any of the giant bangers.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the music part felt, and I don't mean to sound critical or pile on, but it was a something show. It was a mess, and it really felt under-rehearsed. It felt not ready. It felt really. I enjoy the kind of unrehearsed moments, but I don't know. I share the theory with a few other people that it kind of feels weird to end. First of all, to invoke the semi-sacred "one more thing" to announce a consumer-facing service that has zero to do with developers. Yeah. And there's this part of me that wonders if maybe they were like this close on something like an Apple TV announcement and it just wasn't there yet. And I wonder if maybe this event, which was not, a particularly watershed event to call a "one more thing," there's a part of me that just kind of wonders if maybe they had to put that in at the last minute. And that's what they had.
I'm convinced that happened. In fact, the fact that the HomeKit announcement was so short, and I know they had so much more to say, told me that felt like that's where they would have said, oh, and by the way, the hub for your HomeKit will be the brand new Apple TV. So, but that's still to come. Apparently, if that was delayed, it's delayed because of deals that weren't made. Mm-hmm. But this is kind of the overall point of this, and the point of the Panda Daily article is that Apple's now going into areas like the music business where they're bringing a knife to a gunfight. These guys, the music industry is going to eventually kill Pandora. They've been trying really hard. There's going to eventually kill Spotify. Now, it's suicide. It's stupid because there's no alternative the music industry is proposing. Well, what they want is for you to go back and buy CDs some more.
I mean, are they going to kill Spotify by just raising the rates and raising the rates and raising the rates?
But Spotify's not making money. Spotify's raising money,
right? But
Spotify's not profitable and never will be because the music industry determines how much money they make. They could have every person on the planet sign up. They still take home less than they spend. So how is that a business? Where does that flip? They're counting, I presume they're counting as Tim Westergren at Pandora's counting on the music industry giving in.
Right.
Saying, okay, we'll take less. The music industry doesn't seem to have any will to do this.
And Spotify is expanding to video and other stuff, too, so they don't quite have all their eggs in one basket.
I should probably disclaim that we are one of the podcasts on Spotify. Our audio and video is on the new Spotify, and I'm thrilled about that, and that's a smart move because I don't charge them for putting To it on Pandora. I mean, on Spotify. That's free. People have said that one advantage Apple has is their massive clout, the fact that they're going to put Beats on every single iOS device come the end of the month with a 8.4, that they have a multi-billion-dollar slush fund. They've already started buying ads like crazy, but have you seen the Apple Music ads? I don't think that maybe there's going to be more to this campaign. They're great ads. This is the video they showed at the event as well. Love the ads. It's kind of the history of music. But at no point does it talk about a product.
So it looks like, "Oh brother, where art thou light?"
In fact,
Okay,
all
now
they
we're
say
into
at the
music.
end is it says Apple Music. And I think most people seeing that will say, "Oh yeah, Apple Music, iTunes, I know that. I'm a big fan. I use it all the time." Merlin, maybe this is the beginning of a campaign that will do more?
I just, I don't know. There's a phrase John Siracusa from Accidental Tech Podcast uses sometimes. You can really tell when a company is putting wood behind the arrow.
Right.
And it's funny because there were several things that came up. You had mentioned, what was the one you mentioned, like the Cards app a few years ago. It feels like sometimes Apple will have these things that they toss out that seem really just a little bit north of a trial balloon,
Right.
where you're like,
This is no trial balloon, though. This has to work, right?
I guess so, but it seems incredibly fragmented. It really feels like they got a box and put 3 things in it and called it a service.
They got it's a Me Too.
But they showed, I guess so. But I mean, I guess I'm saying that if you show they show the setup for setting the app up with the little
nice.
bubbles.
Yeah.
That's Beats. That's
Right.
setting up a Beats account. You do exactly the same thing.
There you go. That's it. That
I'm
was
not
the
sure.
pitch. 2015 Apple Music. What?
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, it's I guess I just would have liked as a consumer who is super interested in this kind of stuff and does like music and doesn't mind paying for it. I wish there had been a little bit more clarity about what this was replacing. In the same way that, for example, I don't know. It just feels like they come up with these things that are partly baked, and they do enough to kind of put some people out of business, but don't really change fundamentally how things work. So, like Reading List came along and hurt a lot of read later services, but I don't know that many people that
It didn't change anything. Yeah.
I don't know anybody that uses it.
Right.
The Notes app stuff, I think those are great. Those are great additions. But in the case of stuff like that News app, it's like, I mean, is that going to be there a year from now? I mean, I realize they kind of have to do that to compete with Facebook, but there are certain kinds of things where I would like to have a little more clarity on exactly what it's meant to replace. So is Newsstand really dead? I have friends that put out magazines for money that have not officially been told that yet, which seems really weird.
That was the assumption, is that they're going to get rid of the Newsstand, which was kind of lame, which was kind of like a folder that isn't a folder that holds publications. That's going to go away, and but this news doesn't replace that. It's something else.
And what you want the magazines that used to be in that newsstand folder just to be on the desktop.
Apparently, that's what they're
with other stuff.
That's what I've read. But you're saying that Apple, Merlin, hasn't told anybody.
Well, I can't say for sure, but actually, this will podcast I do with Jim Dalrymple, which will come out tomorrow, or this week's episode. He does something for Loop Insight on has a magazine, and according to him, he hasn't received any kind of notification from Apple about that. It's just I don't know. There are just times when Apple comes up with stuff, and you really kind of hope. Sometimes it feels like a gamble with any company. This is true for Google. This is true for anywhere, but especially with Apple, you really hope that they're going to see it through to completion and, as they say, put that wood behind the arrow to make it something that's going to be really awesome. It's just that in the case of that music app, that smelled more like Ping to me than I mean, well, no, in the sense let me understand. So Drake's going to send me lyrics in the app where I listen to REM. This is the problem with stuff like iTunes is there's too much junk in one place. This feels like a different way of organizing that junk around Beats plus something. They did not clarify the iTunes Match thing. iTunes Match, I think you still have to have a separate iTunes Match account to keep using iTunes Match, even though iTunes Match selections appear. I don't know. I just thought it was pretty muddled.
Dylan, you were going to say something.
Yeah, iTunes is not going away either. They weren't very clear about that. I mean,
is Match going away? Match continues.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it feels to me like they had a checklist of things, like we need lyrics, we need curation, we need, this and that, and they just kind of shook it up. And
it feels like a Me Too. The problem is I don't see any. I don't know if there's friction to switch from Spotify. I'm a Spotify and Google Music subscriber.
I jump around all the time.
How do you jump around? So that's not a hard thing to do, right? So and because they're going to give people free 3 months, it's the same price. It's $10 a month, but they're going to, and it's, I presume, 30 million, the same 30 million songs that everybody else has. So the selling point solely is, well, but it's Apple.
I mean, I think
it's Apple.
The big question is maybe they have plans for something that is newer and more interesting and more of a great leap forward, which is Apple Music 2.0. Maybe the first step is just to get it onto the devices and then to do something cool and interesting, which, of course, Apple and other companies all the time release something kind of half-baked and then get around to doing something more impressive.
Yeah.
That's another part of this that feels like a little bit of a sleeping giant. I know this is true to an extent with Google. It's certainly true with Amazon. But, there was that number that came out in the last year or so about how many active credit cards Apple has on file. Like how many people are comfortable buying stuff from Apple. I don't have an opinion one way or another, but it's a super interesting metric to me that there are so many people that are okay buying stuff with Apple. And, ideally they want to find a way to run that card more often. I'm just kind of surprised because, I guess, but I mean, also I don't know to me, the big hit would be eventually getting something with a dev where developers can put stuff on an Apple TV, because then you can buy apps. You can buy $1,000 worth of apps in a month. You can only spend $10 a month on streaming. That feels a little capped out to me.
I have a product that probably looks a little bit like this kind of Apple TV. It's called the Android TV, the NVIDIA Shield TV. It has an app store. It has games. It works great with Google Music, which I am a subscriber of. And the nice thing about Google Music, like Apple Music, all my whatever I bought, including Beatles music, is on it. Plus the 30 million songs that I don't own, and it plays through my stereo, it plays through my TV. I could see an Apple TV being great, but again, it's also an also-ran. I think Apple's got trouble if the only thing Apple can say is, but it's Apple. They have to offer something of value beyond what's out there, and it feels like Apple's merely saying, oh, but it's Apple. Now the other thing, and you bring this up with the new news program, is, and they've definitely said this on stage, and we're Apple, and we, unlike those other guys, protect your privacy.
Sorry.
Well, but that's a question mark, because how can you, for instance, and this is a great post on Google+, I don't know who Thomas Bakedell is, but he makes a great point. He said, if in fact, as Craig Federighi said, Apple News is anonymous, not associated with your Apple ID, not linked to other Apple services, not share with third parties, you're in control. There's some negatives to that. For instance, my iPad won't know what I've read on my iPhone because it's not shared. It says it gets smarter as you use it, but only that one app will get smarter. If I reinstall or use a different device, it won't know because it's not tied to my Apple ID. So there's an advantage Google has. There's an advantage other companies have to not saying, oh, but don't worry, none of this is connected. Connected sometimes is what consumers want. Dylan, you agree?
I think connected is usually what most consumers always want. There's just a tiny, tiny number who are concerned about privacy. And when you come down to it, if it costs anything, most people would rather give up all their privacy rather than pay anything.
Just make it free. You can have anything you want. I love Google now. I don't mind giving up whatever it is I'm giving up to Google because it's valuable. The aggregation is valuable.
That's not to say we shouldn't be concerned. I think there are absolutely legitimate reasons to be concerned about privacy. But most consumers don't agree yet because most consumers haven't experienced anything, that would lead them to feel like losing their privacy was anything bad. It's like the vaccine argument, right? Nobody around me is getting measles, so I don't need the vaccine.
I mean, a couple 3 weeks ago, news started to bubble up about a story at Annenberg School for Communications, which is University of Pennsylvania school. They did a study, and basically they said just Americans have given up on the concept of privacy.
Americans want privacy, but they've given up.
They always say they want it, which is not the same as
they understand they'll never get it.
As actually taking actions to preserve it. But
as long as it's convenient and free, they're all for privacy.
I have to say, though, our audience is outspoken in that, and privacy advocates tend to be very loud.
Right.
And so people get the impression that the American public does. I think the American public does care, but I think they also acknowledge, look, I go into a Target store, they know exactly what I'm going to buy. They know exactly what coupons to feed me. There is no advertising privacy. This is, again, from this incredible post from Thomas Bakedell. He quotes Tim Cook saying, they're gobbling up, talking about other companies, everything they can learn about you and trying to monetize it. We think that's wrong, says Apple. And it's not the kind of company Apple wants to be. We don't want your data. And then at that very same event, they launched 3 new services, Apple Wallet, Apple Music and Apple News, both featuring individual targeting, tracking, and tailoring integrated directly into iAds, Apple's ad platform. He says, I call shenanigans. They're doing what Google does and what everybody does.
Yeah.
And Google should not be available on the iPhone if it's really as disastrous as they say.
Well, I think Apple's working hard towards that.
Well,
the problem is customers want it.
And I don't think you can look at what Tim Cook is saying outside of the context of Apple having this arch rival called Google, whose business is A, making tools better by storing your data and using it, and C, monetizing it by selling advertising.
Look, nobody's denying that the iPhone sells very well. And I would bet that a lot of people who buy the iPhone are aware of the promise, whether it's the reality or not, that Apple's going to protect their privacy. And that's certainly part of the reason they choose it, right?
Well, but that's also what was so interesting about that study. There's it's a good summary of it up on CNET. It's Americans resigned to giving up their privacy.
Right.
But, in the survey, they found out 65% of Americans believed the mere mention of a privacy policy meant that your privacy was protected by that company. Or that, Expedia and Orbit are legally required to give you the lowest possible price when you're searching for a flight.
No.
It's a really good write-up by Chris Matijak.
When I was a kid, I remember we'd say, "Oh, they can't say it on an ad if it's not true." Remember that? Did you ever think that as a kid? You go, "Oh no, they can't. They wouldn't. The government wouldn't let them say it if it's not true."
Yeah, good luck with that.
I think this is kind of like that.
I just remember being 10, ordering something mail order, and it was an out-and-out lie, and that was the beginning of that, and having a publisher change a review I wrote for my very first printed review in a guitar magazine, and made it a glowing endorsement of one of the biggest pieces of crap I have ever seen in my life.
You panned it, and he changed it?
He changed it completely. And I never wrote for the magazine again, and I've never, ever not had full editorial control over it.
And your eyes were opened.
My eyes were I realized that everything I'd read in that magazine had been a complete fabrication for the last 8 years of my life, which was also heartbreaking.
Yeah. It's tough when you grow up and you realize the world's crap. No, it's not. It's a wonderful place.
It is a wonderful place.
And everything is so great.
It's a wonderful life, Leo.
It is. And we love it. So I feel like, and I know I'm going to get email. Oh, why are you so hard on Apple? Are we being hard on Apple? Are we asking Apple just to do what everybody to be straightforward? And I do see problems ahead. I think. All right, no, this is very dangerous territory. Is Apple Merlin? You're an Apple fanatic.
Am I?
You seem like you're a little negative on that. Is Apple stumbling?
Oh no, I'm just very critical of stuff that I love.
Yeah, me too. I agree.
You'll notice how many things I don't have a comment about.
I expect more of Apple.
I only get mad at stuff I want to get better, and I really do.
Right.
I believe that. I don't know. I guess I'm a little less skeptical or cynical about Tim Cook's Apple. I really think he does want to do the right thing. I think part of the problem is that we as consumers. I mean, you hear those numbers about how, jobs are created, jobs are not being created, how many people are applying for, trying to get new jobs. There's a certain point of fatigue that people reach in a down economy where they're not even trying to get a job anymore. I think that's kind of where we are for the moment with privacy, where it feels completely out of people's control. I don't know who you blame for that, but if you start reading Krebs on security every day, you open your eyes a little bit and you start to realize what all is out there. Maybe you can't control it all. Absolutely. But I'm glad somebody's out there at least showing that there is a value proposition to be made for taking a stand on this. So I use lots of Google stuff and I like lots of Google stuff. I'm not a Google tinfoil hat guy because they do deliver a lot of value for what I perceive them taking away. I think what drives people nuts is when there's opacity to these processes and even people who try to bone up and do the right thing. It's difficult. It's difficult to have two-factor authentication on everything and do it. It's difficult to enter a military-grade password using an Apple four-way dingus on an Apple TV. It's all very. I would love to have seen Steve Jobs live long enough to enter a 3 trillion year password using one of those things. So, but I think it's and the trouble is there's not to blame the media as Mo Sizlak says, but part of it is in the way that this is always presented: cybersecurity and cyber threats and cyber problems. It's like, no, this is just our life now. And there has to be some more sanity brought to like what we can all do on this together. So how much of the stuff that happens is just pure social engineering? What company are you going to blame for that? I don't know. I guess I just feel like there's still so much we could all do better. And I'd like to see a company, lip service, maybe not so great, but I do feel like Apple does care about that. And they wouldn't be saying it unless they thought that they were doing it better. They have to find a way to differentiate themselves. So I wouldn't say I'm an Apple fanatic. Apple's the stuff that I use, so I have to be cynical about it sometimes. And I don't know. I hope that we all get to a place where we can evolve and adapt beyond the way we've done stuff essentially for 50 years. I mean, it's time for some really new thinking about stuff like name password pairs as the way we deal with life. And so anyway, yeah, I hope that's a conversation I would hate, I guess what I want to say is I would hate to get to the point where we all just throw our hands up in the air and say nobody cares anymore. Because I mean, I care. Even if I can't be perfect at it, I still care. And I hope that the generation, the younger than us, will care too. They're the ones that matter. We're all old. Nobody cares what we think. I hope they care, and I hope they hold people to a higher standard of, taking care of us, I guess, and taking care of ourselves.
Until they get beat down like we are, and then they'll give up too.
Oh no, that's unavoidable. Enjoy that confidence while you're young, guys. Enjoy it. Be able to stand and sit without making a noise.
Oh, man.
Move your bowels in a normal way. Enjoy
Someday.
that while you can.
Yeah,
really,
yeah.
it's good.
It doesn't
Drink a lot
last
of water,
long.
though, and sleep while you can, because you're going to be dead someday.
Let
Back to you.
What a very special episode of Square.
let me wrap this up with two questions related. One is, how important is it to Apple that Apple Music succeeds? Is it, in fact, going to be enough to replace iTunes sales, which are clearly declining? And on the other side, how important to the music industry is it? And what does the music industry do? You, Merlin, gave us an article from Pitchfork that shows how little bands make, and we know this from Pandora and Spotify.
But we may not know like how comically low it is.
Oh, it's
Well, but that's
pennies.
also
it's actually funny how little it is.
But part of that's not necessarily in many cases the fault of Spotify or Pandora.
Could be the labels.
The labels take
Right.
the labels pull a big chunk of everything.
But music is not in good shape. You think? The music. I mean, I hate to say the music
Define
industry.
good shape.
If you're an artist, I remember talking. I
Who cares
talked
about the industry, really?
Well,
I mean,
no. It's about
if you're an
artists.
artist,
Yeah. That's what I mean.
If you're an artist, you may have a hard time making money the traditional music industry ways, but isn't it true that you can reach a bigger audience than ever before if you want to go on YouTube or you want to, aren't there more ways to build a fan base and build a following than ever before? I mean, you can't make money by selling CDs, but maybe you can make money by
But nobody ever made money
selling
that
concert
much.
tickets.
There was a small group of people that made a lot of money off CDs. It's always been a small group. Most artists, even the huge artists, made their money off of the tours and the merch on the tours. Certainly
So
since
that's
the
not
70s.
much of a change.
That hasn't changed that much. I mean,
But we want artists to succeed, and we want
Yes.
young people coming up as musicians, as performers, to be able to make a living.
yes, it would be nice.
And it sounds like, Dylan, you're saying the good news is that is doable. You just can't do it the old way.
Well, I mean,
Well, it's easy for me to say. I'm not trying to make a living as an artist of any kind, but it does seem like there are some possibilities for making a living as a musician if you're willing to look outside the sort of I need to get a big contract from
You're not
a major
platinum
label.
artists, probably not.
But this is but this is not this situation hasn't changed much in the last 30 years, because I can remember interviewing people where all they wanted to be was like, we're looking for a big record deal, and I'm like, you need to talk to people with big record deals, because they're not making
It's
money
not that
off
good
the
either.
records, right?
Yeah.
But I think it has changed. In one way, Patrick, I think it has changed, which is that you can build a following on Twitter or YouTube or what have you.
But that's
You
what I'm
look
saying,
at
though, is
Amanda
there's-
Palmer, you look at Zoe Keating. Like, there are a lot of artists out there who have sort of, they're not huge, they're not getting rich off their music, but they're
Thanks
supporting
to
themselves.
Patreon, thanks to YouTube.
And
there
that's what I
are
was going to
ways
say.
to do this.
Yeah, I mean, nobody's been rich off of YouTube. Patreon's been amazing. Patreon is supporting, Tech Thing, and there's all these other people doing it. And I'm not saying there's not a thousand other ways. What I find it ironic is there's still people that want a record deal even when they know, because everything is so public on the internet now, that they're probably not going to make any money and get screwed by the record label.
Yeah.
I mean, I can remember having been, I have issues with record companies because there's nothing more unpleasant in the world than being in a meeting with a pissed off PR person for a record company. At least, when the record companies were making money hand over fist, they were nasty, they were vicious, they were manipulative in how they handled things. You won't have access to this artist if you don't put this artist on the cover of your magazine this month. And
That's pretty common. When you're in power,
Yeah.
Companies in power tend to do stuff like
They
that.
tend to do stuff like that, and they were making money that the artists weren't seeing, and it's always been like that, And I think it's disingenuous for people to blame, say, Spotify for them not making a lot of money when the record company's cashing larger checks and just not giving them a cut. That's a contract problem. That's an industry problem. But yes, there's so many better ways to make music.
So question 2 was music industry. So we all are in the affirmative that there is a future going forward. It's just not going to be the way the record labels want it to be, or maybe even Spotify, Apple Music, and Pandora want it to be. But artists do have an opportunity if they know how to work the system properly, right?
And I don't think, when all is said and done, it's all that essential to Apple that Apple Music do well.
That's the second question.
Spotify definitely has to figure out
Right.
music, because if it doesn't have that, it has very little. For Apple, I mean, music was great to get people to buy iPods in the first place.
Right.
The great thing about the iPhone now is it's a great platform for all these third-party music services, and I'm still buying Apple's hardware.
Right.
And Apple is never going to be all that dependent on revenue from selling music. So
You could probably make the case that it's more important for the iWatch or the Apple Watch to do well than the Apple Music to do well.
Totally. They have to be an important device on your wrist. That is really important to them.
They need a successor to the iPhone at some point.
If Apple Music does well, great. If Apple Music is something of a disappointment, I don't think Tim Cook loses all that much sleep.
Even if the revenue from iTunes went away, it's not so much money that it was going to hurt them.
No.
It was iTunes is $10 billion out of $182 billion in earnings for Apple in 2014.
It's nice to be in that position. It's really the iPhone. It's the iPhone. It's all about the iPhone. But they need a successor to that. I think the professional iPad might be something to look at. I think the Apple Watch has some potential. All right, that's anything. Merlin, one last final word on the Apple event. Anything else to say? Are you a fan of Drake?
Oh, huge fan.
Yeah.
I'm just happy that he knows so many famous people. I was kind enough to share that with us. I agree with you guys. I don't know anything about business, but I don't see how this needs to happen for Apple. It sounds like another one of those things where somebody up in the peanut gallery is screaming about what Apple has to do in order to be successful. Right. Look at what they've done well with, and what they have done well with is finding a way to take something. Start with something that everybody thought was a lost cause, find a way to make it beautiful, sexy, and costly, find the people who want that, and then give them a way to buy huge amounts of more stuff with that. So the thing is, I mean, having a commodity music service where you're competing on price, that does not feel like Apple to me. So I think that's why I feel like this really feels like an out of left field thing. I don't know. I don't think that's a big part. They were part of the undoing of the way the music industry worked. And now I think that's probably harming them a little bit too.
Yeah.
Truth is, though, they don't have to sell iPods anymore.
It's not the most important thing.
Now they're selling iPhones and they want you buying apps.
Right.
So anyway, I'd love to be back sometime to talk about the Apple TV, because I think that's a really interesting place the future is headed, especially when that becomes the hub for all of your home stuff.
Yeah, I wanted to see something about Apple TV. I was so disappointed that there was nothing about Apple TV of substance.
So there's no reason we have to drop it. Let's come back and talk about it. That'll be our next subject. There are so many things to talk about. This is going to be the first 18-hour twit, and I'm really glad that Merlin, the audience is going, oh my God, and we have the most uncomfortable chairs we've ever sat in. Merlin Mann is here. It's so great to have you back. What do you want to plug?
Oh, okay. Oh, you mean like to make people go and do a thing?
Yeah, make them go and do a thing.
I don't like plugging. I've got 2 new things I would love people to go and check out.
There you go.
There's a show I mentioned with Jim Dalrymple called The Dalrymple Report. You can get that at loopinsight.com/The Dalrymple Report.
So
That's
it's
a new
you
podcast.
and Jim?
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's got to be great. So you talk for half an hour, then he goes, yep. Is that basically how it goes?
You know what? You don't need to listen. That's it. That's the whole thing. That's pretty much it. That's true. And here's me. Here's Jim.
Yep.
That's it. And the other show I'm very excited about on Relay.fm is a show called Reconcilable Differences. That's me and John Siracusa do a show. I'm very excited about. And you can see that at relay.fm/RD.
Nice.
And I'm really proud of both of those. I do other stuff. I still do Back to Work with Dan. I do Roderick on the Line with John Roderick. I do lots of stuff, but I'm very happy to be here. It's nice that you've...
We love Merlin Mann, and we're so thrilled to have you.
I'm going to get a better camera for next time. This is
Hey, look
weird.
good. You do look like you might be one of the 2 guys that escaped from prison last week, but other than that...
You think you're better than me? Get the blue light. I can get the blue light on. That'll make me
much better. Much better. Okay, now, yeah. Harry McCracken, the technologizer, is here. You can read his works at fastcompany.com. Follow Harry and Marie on Instagram. I love your pictures. I love your pictures. Wild stuff. Where were you at the Computer History Museum? I saw a lot of old stuff. And
my feed is probably about half stuff about old technology.
Love that.
And when Radio Shack is finally out of business, I'm going to be in trouble because I keep going into Radio Shack and Instagramming the going out of business sales.
I love it. Is it on what is it on Instagram? Is it Technologizer?
It's Technologizer.
Technologizer. Okay. Yeah. It's fun. I keep up with my friends basically on Instagram. That's the only way I know anything that's going on.
I put photos of you on Instagram. They're always a huge hit.
Thank you.
I will put you on your Segway up as soon as the show is over.
Oh, good. That should be fun. I rode in on the Segway. My buddy Patrick Norton's here. You got to watch last episode of the new Screensavers. So much fun. And, of course, TechThing, TEKTHING.com.
$2,100 less expensive than TECHTHING.com.
That's a big difference. But, with that Patreon money rolling in, you and Snubs might be able to afford that someday.
I just want to make a living. Feed my children, have health insurance.
I just want to make a living. That's all he asks, folks. And brand new to the show, and I'm thrilled to have him, Dylan Tweney. Great to have you from VentureBeat.com. Editor-at-large is like the best title you could have. That means you can do anything you want, right?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, I don't have to go to the office anymore. I can go down to Las Vegas and file 10,000 word stream of.
Oh, you're like Hunter S.
things.
Thompson. Is that what you're saying?
Oh, that's what I'm aiming for. Yeah. so watch out.
I was visiting a friend of Dvorak's, Will Hurst, when he was editor-in-chief of the Examiner and was responsible for getting Hunter S. Thompson to file. And I'll never forget listening into one half of a phone conversation where Will's going, Hunter, listen to me. We put the paper to bed in half an hour. Where'd you go? Anyway, must have been fun working with that fella. Kind of like working with Keith Olbermann. More to come in just a second. Let's talk TV, Apple TV. Merlin, you and Jim did a whole show on TV. So
yeah, actually we did. Talked about cord cutting, and a lot of it was, as we say in You Look Nice Today, blue sky solutioneering. Just kind of
you're the king. There's nobody
it out
better.
the backside.
Yeah.
No, but basically, we
don't say no. Save it. Don't start. This is the good stuff, but I got to do an ad. Look at that. He froze.
I'm good.
You take orders well, Mr. Man.
Thank you.
Brought to you by Audible.com. We love Audible. There's no reason to even do the ad. Just get it, okay? We actually have two books for you. Audible.com/twit2. It is the largest and best audio bookstore in the world. 180,000 titles. And now summertime's coming. Your summertime reading is so much better. You're lying on the beach, not trying to read between the sand grains and the sun. You can just listen and relax on the plane. I got a big flight coming up in a couple of weeks. I'm loading up on the Audible books. And what I do is there's Neil deGrasse Tyson. What I do is I alternate between fiction and nonfiction, back and forth. So I get a little bit of escape, a little science fiction. Got the new Neil Stephenson. You and I are Neil Stephenson fanatics. Yes. You read the Baroque Cycle.
I just reread it
about
2 months ago. Yeah, it's my third time.
Holy cow. I have it on Audible, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to get through it here. Season of the Witch.
Season of the Witch.
You know it.
I just looked it up.
Enchantment, Terror, and Deliverance in the City of Love. David Talbot. It's San Francisco in the late 60s, early 70s.
Read that. It's fantastic.
I can't wait to read it.
It's amazing. It's unhinged.
That's my next book. So
is this the Salon David Talbot?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, isn't that great? He's a great writer. He's founder of Salon.
Yeah. Good.
We interviewed Ashley Vance last week on Triangulation about his new book, Elon Musk, Tesla, SpaceX, and the Quest for a Fantastic Future. Man, some great stories in there, including the day he wrecked his McLaren. Oh.
Elon or Ashley?
No, Elon. I don't think Ashley has a McLaren. So nonfiction's doing great, but there's great fiction too. The science fiction selection here is phenomenal. Audible always has great recommendations. And one thing that's cool about people who love Audible, when they get together, they always talk. Jurassic Park, before you see the movie, re-listen to the novel. I'm really excited about the new movie. But all the Michael Crichton novels are here and really nicely done. Scott Brick does a great job. This is a re-record for the 25th anniversary of Jurassic Park. Audible.com. Here's how you get two books. I've given you a few. Audible.com/twit2. You're signing up for the Platinum Plan. That's the book, 2 books a month plan. It includes the Daily Digest of the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal. And you pay nothing for the first 30 days. Cancel any time in those first 30 days. Keep those books forever. You won't want to cancel. I am a fanatic. I listen to Audible. I just got the Amazon Echo, that little tube that you talk to. And you can now say, hey, Echo, read me, and it'll read to you from your Audible collection, which is amazing. Audible.com/twit2. We thank them for their support of This Week in Tech. So you think, boy, I think, Merlin, we used to talk about this when the Apple TV first came out on Mac Break Weekly when you were there, that they will put an app store on the Apple TV?
Yeah, it sounds like one of my predictions.
From 8 years ago?
Right.
Or whatever?
I got it. My track record is outstanding.
We're still waiting for that Beatles iPod. Wait a minute, what was that? You were the
yellow submarine
Yellow
iPod?
Submarine. Yeah, still waiting for that
Any
one.
day now. Any day now.
Pono
Yeah,
player.
no, I mean, I don't think this is anything. I'm not the first person to say any of this stuff. It's just that it's been so long since the Apple TV has been updated, and it's really. I don't feel
People
great
have
saying
moved
this.
on. They've gone to Roku. They've gone to other platforms.
Well, the Amazon Fire TV really
love
does
it.
fly.
I love my Shield.
And the thing is that when I talk to my friends who have just an Apple TV, that sounds really crazy. Like, how could there be a performance difference? And it's like, well, the fact that it wakes like the second you hit it, it's crazy. But anyway, all that aside, it's just that I don't know. I just feel like there's a big opportunity out there for some kind of a device where I sometimes feel like, again, I said this on another show recently, but I feel like sometimes our biggest constraint of mind is that we call it an Apple TV. Where we think of it, I mean, we became to know this little puck as a way to buy things on the iTunes store.
That's what it's become.
And that's, I think something different is going to happen with that. And maybe it gets mixed in with a router. Maybe, who knows what it could be. But I guess, if I had any, it's been a while since I've done a really dumb prediction on a Twitch show.
Let's do it.
My dumb prediction is going to be that they're going to have an amazing pivot in the next 2 years where they're a company that has typically said, we'll take it in the shorts on content in order to make it up in hardware. There's a part of me that wonders if they'll take it in the shorts on hardware in order to make it up on content when it comes to things like movies and apps. So I would love to see a future in 2 years where you could walk into a Walgreens and pick up whatever replaces the Apple TV, take it with you anywhere, have a service that's portable. Like Marriott, for example. Marriott just announced a service where you can get your Netflix inside your room. If they really are going to move this stuff into the cloud, the Apple TV just becomes the way that it gets from the tube onto your TV. But that App Store becomes so important in that scenario. That said, having a device where you could do HomeKit stuff would just be giant. It just seems like the most obvious thing in the world. So if any, like one or two of those things are what was planned or what is being planned for the Apple TV, I'm not surprised that it's taken a while, because that's a whole lot of stuff in a company that has not done great with services in the past. So
by the way,
that's my wild prediction. My wild prediction, everything's going to change.
They dropped it to 69, which was, I think, because they were going to clear it out, right?
That's what we all thought, yeah.
Sounds like they might have thought they were about to announce it too and had to delay it a little bit.
But that's all right. They could do it next month.
A couple weeks ago, Les Moonves, the head of CBS, was talking about how, yes, we are actually talking to Apple. It was at the Code Conference, and
he said he was excited. He wanted to do it.
He said he was happy. He said basically it's just about money right now. So they're just negotiating about how much they get paid, is what it sounded like.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that is, it is kind of the bottom line, isn't it? I mean,
right.
I mean, it's
one
not
little detail to take care of.
That's the only thing Les's job really is to do, is make sure that the money's there.
Yes. How many billions are you going to give us?
Speaking of which, I'm stunned by what you just told us, Merlin, that Marriott, which makes a ton of money on in-room entertainment, mostly porno, is going to let you watch your Netflix. They must have been forced into that. There's no way. I mean, they're giving up. Why would I ever rent a $20 movie on the Marriott?
Well, maybe the revenues from the movies are disappearing because of the internet in the hotel room.
Oh,
and
it's
now
killing
they're
the
trying
internet.
to figure out a way to make people more loyal to their brand.
Okay.
Have you read any of the articles about how how many hotels are not doing mini bars and in their rooms anymore?
Why is that?
I've read a couple things about it. Forgive me, I don't remember where I read a big piece on this, but I've been surprised too that more and more stuff,
it's just an empty refrifrigerator. Sometimes not even turned on.
You don't use your landline in the hotel room anymore.
Right.
I hardly turn on the TV at all. I just use my iPad or laptop.
But somebody wrote this like comprehensive history of the minibar and what's happened to it over the years, and
Wait a minute.
and how they
that I want to read.
It was fascinating.
It must have been on Medium.
Because you've certainly done the thing where you like go, oh, do I want this? And you move it around, and you get charged.
Yeah.
But basically, the idea is that it's not nearly as profitable as you would guess. It takes a lot of resources. I mean, hotels are pretty under resourced in a lot of ways. It's very costly to keep up. They lose a lot of money on it. They end up having to give a lot of money back on refunds and stuff like that. I guess what I'm wondering is like, it seems like selling movies in a room would be pure profit, but maybe the margins on that are not that great.
Well, the systems were always really clunky and almost always third party. But it's funny, like I did a quick search. There's 2010 LA Times article talking about how hotel revenue from phone calls and in-room movies was drying up.
Here's the
because
Economist.
More guests were bringing their own devices.
Minibar blues, writes the Economist. Unfortunately, I can't read it because I have to see an ad from Rolex first. Here we go. Hold on. Well, if you're reading The Economist, you obviously can afford a fine watch. The hotel minibar, the last refuge of many of a tired, emotional business traveler, is in its twilight years.
Wow. Hotels aren't even charging for Wi-Fi nearly as much as they used to. A lot of the time, that's just being rolled into the cost of the room.
I think that's increasingly that's going to be table stakes. Which seems improbable. It wasn't so long ago. It was $30 a day for one device to connect. That seems like 2 years ago to me.
As Beef in our chat room says, it's pretty sad when a company can't make a profit on a $10 bag of peanuts, or a $25 day of Wi-Fi. Obviously, there's overhead I didn't understand.
Well, it's funny. Like this LA Times article, revenue collected by U.S. hotels from phone calls dropped to an average of $178 per room in 2009 from $1,252 in 1999.
Wow.
So an 86% drop.
Part of the problem is theft. Customers drink the booze in the little bottles and replace it with water. Who knew?
So then what they did was, I remember when they started doing this as a drinker, when they started making it so that if you even moved the thing, they would charge you.
Yeah.
And if you don't check your bill, people don't check the bill, and there'll be all this stuff on there, and they had to do all these chargebacks. Anyway, once again, there's a reason I am not in the corner office. But I mean, I think that it feels like the industry, there's always ways they're trying to make a buck, but more and more, if as an occasional traveler, it feels like they're really trying to save money. Like if there's not a clear winner and a way to like make pure profit, it's really more about minimizing costs. Like, have you noticed, like, now I sound like Jerry Seinfeld, what's the deal with garbage cans? Is it just me, or like, is there like one tiny garbage can for the entire room?
There is, that's all. Yeah.
Well, there must be a reason. I bet there's an economic reason for that. They probably they want to clean that room and flip it around as soon as possible because that means fewer staff. I don't think hotels do as well as it seems. Anyway, I don't know how it's became about hotels, but
they're looking at replacing the housekeeping staff with robots. I mean, literally.
There's a hotel in Silicon Valley where the little robot comes and brings you your...
If you call for a toothbrush, a robot comes up with it.
Yeah. Well, the smaller hotels in Vegas.
That doesn't seem like a cost saving, by the way.
Well, I mean, it depends on it's funny though, but for the larger hotels, it's a big deal. For the smaller hotels in Vegas, it turns out like the people are brought in, they're independent contractors, and if they step into your room and give you towels, they make like $3. If they're not allowed in the room, they make nothing. And there's a person watching and queuing them to see which room they go into. In the case of the larger hotels, when you have in Vegas, it'll go from 80% occupancy during CES and maybe spend 80% of its time at 20% occupancy. Keeping staff online for that is a nightmare. So in that case, robots may actually be less expensive, and robots don't expect retirement. They don't have health insurance policies. It's
usually.
But I bet the tiny garbage cans is probably about minimizing the amount they pay. Just because I've walked into a hotel room with somebody had like emptied out the back of their entire truck into the garbage can. And there was just this pile in the corner.
That's why I think you would want garbage cans to encourage people to take the trash and put it in a garbage can. If you don't give me enough garbage cans, I'm going to leave it on the floor.
I had the same thought. We have a park near our house, and one day I ran into the inscrutable woman who takes care of the park, and I said, "Inscrutable woman, why do we not have more garbage cans here in the park? Because it seems to me that all the high school kids who are monsters throw all their trash and their Swisher Sweet things on the ground. Wouldn't it be like a nice thing for the park if we had more garbage cans? Leave them on the path. People can put the garbage in them." And she goes, "No, we just have to empty those."
The city gets the Swisher Sweet stuff.
There's a reason I'm not on city council. It seems to me that would be easier than picking it up off the ground later. But
I'm just thinking.
I think you should be on city council.
Crazy.
These meetings would be awesome.
So now, I think I missed a step here. What is Apple doing to disrupt the hotel industry?
I don't know how we got. Dylan, you're new here, so let me explain.
Imagine it's Johnny Ive in a white room. We have taken everything you love about your home trash can. Added chamfered edges.
The simplest hotel room.
The world's tiniest trash can.
We've ever made.
We've made it slimmer.
Dylan, the problem really with this show in general is that we all are massively suffering from ADD, and we haven't taken our meds. So you never know where we're going to go. In fact, Merlin, I think you invented the rat hole.
Yeah, that was me. Yeah.
Wait a minute. Here he goes. The rat hole theme, ladies and gentlemen. Everybody.
Rat hole.
I have a recording of that somewhere. Thank you, Merlin. Man, it wouldn't be the same without you. All right. This is another rat hole, but I think an interesting one. The market, I think it's the market, has slowly been eating away at Twitter. First a foot, then a thigh, then another hand. They've scapegoated every executive. Finally got to the head office. The CEO, Dick Costolo, who is well beloved. I think you probably know him, Merlin. A funny guy, talented.
Everybody seems to like him. Except for Wall Street.
Yeah, Wall Street didn't like him. And bye-bye, Dick Costolo. He's no longer going to be the CEO. Jack Dorsey's coming back. Jack's like a bad penny. You cannot get rid of him until they find another CEO, right? Or wrong?
Steve Jobs was the interim CEO at Apple for like several years,
That's true.
if I remember correctly.
Jack has been the CEO before. Remember, he was going back and forth between his startup Square and like in one day he'd do half a day at Square and half a day at Twitter.
They're in buildings right next to each other on Market Street.
He's still doing that. He's really taking this being like Steve Jobs thing really way too serious. Except for the beard. Steve would never have let his beard grow that long. No.
Yeah, Jack, the beard. I hadn't seen the beard until this news came out.
Did you see his mom complaining about the beard on Twitter?
No.
She went on Twitter and said she didn't like it because he has such a nice face.
Oh, he has such a nice punum. I have a feeling there probably, and I'm just going to check, is a Jack Dorsey's beard account on Twitter right now. You probably know all the players, Merlin. I think you were a very early adopter and very tight with the Twitter group.
I'm so deeply out of the loop. I did a talk at Twitter about meetings. You can find somewhere on the internet, probably about 2-3 years ago. And I remember going in there and I was talking like, so this must be really crazy, like, really difficult. You're growing. Like, yeah. Like in January we had 150 people, and then in that fall they had 300 people. And now today, I mean, how many you guys follow this? How much do they have? How many people do they have today?
I don't know. At Twitter? You think it's smaller than it was?
I work in the same building as Twitter, and in the building is just vast numbers of Twitter people. There were 30 people for an amazingly long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't feel like Dick did anything wrong. In fact, to me, he was, of all the CEOs, the one who was most interactive with its users. It was most forthright. He was the guy who wrote the memo, said, we screwed up. We're going to do better when harassment became a problem, thanks to Robin Williams' daughter, who was basically chased from Twitter. He said, that's our fault, and we're going to fix it. And I admired it for that. Wall Street's problem is that Twitter's not growing as fast as it used to.
They want it to be Facebook.
And it's not making money.
Yeah.
It's losing money. I mean, that's the real issue. Twitter's actually growing pretty quickly, and it's doing, in terms of sheer metrics, it's not bad for being a distant number two to Facebook.
Yeah.
But in terms of revenue, I mean, the question is, like, they could be making so much more money. They could be doing such a better job of engaging people and keeping them sticking around. And I think Wall Street is just like, we've had too many lackluster quarters, and we've had enough.
By the way, here's the Jack Dorsey's beard account. It really does exist. But it's funny because it feels like Twitter has kind of cracked the monetization nut. They've got these promoted accounts. I see an ad now every time I look at Twitter on the web. I see this is a New York Times promoted tweet. So that's an ad. Why can't they monetize? They seem like they have a very kind of a great monetization strategy.
They can't monetize as well as they would if you measured their users in billions rather than hundreds of millions.
I see. They're just not big enough.
Yeah.
Well, if even Instagram is bigger, right? Go ahead, Dylan.
Yeah, no, I think that's it. I mean, they're almost overdoing it in promoted tweets. I see way too many in my stream.
Yeah.
I think the issue they have is one with engagement and just getting people to stick around and to come back. And, Chris Sacca, who's one of their big shareholders, one of their big investors from early on, penned this gigantic 10,000-word essay this week about all the things that Twitter could do better. And it's way too long. But his point is that they could do much better at engagement and at sort of building around events, right? So like you're watching the Warriors play, the Cavs in the NBA Finals, and like if you want to actually do that right now, you have to figure out which hashtags to follow. You have to there's a handful of them. There's some key accounts you have to follow. You have to set it all up, and you have to kind of be a power user to actually make use of what's going on Twitter around a sporting event, right? And so they could way easily put together these channels where people could just be like, hey, the playoffs are on tonight. Let me, follow this channel on Twitter while I'm watching the game, and it will enrich the experience. And they just haven't done a lot of that kind of thing to bring people in and get them engaged who are not power users like all of us talking right here, right?
It's funny. I was talking today on the radio show about when you have a kid, you should do a Google search on the proposed name to make sure that you get a unique enough name. You should probably create a Gmail account in that new name, a website in that new name. And then I wondered, well, should you get that kid's Twitter handle just proactively? Because will Twitter be around in 10, 20 years? And I don't think so. I don't feel like it will. Will it? Facebook will. Google will.
I don't know about that. Google will.
Will Twitter?
There are rumors
I
again
think
about
Twitter
it
will
possibly being
probably be
acquired
By Google.
by Google, which doesn't mean they'll shut it down. But
It seems like that would be a bad thing.
But
if you're a fan of Twitter.
But it's a sign that people don't see Twitter as something that's going to just grow and grow and thrive indefinitely.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of things I love about Twitter. It's a great way to interact with the audience. It's an interesting way to interact with friends. It has never generated click-throughs in any significant way.
Oh, that's true? So when you put a link or a show up on Twitter, no value?
No.
Interesting.
No.
Is that because of a lack of engagement or?
Well, it's partially is once you start following a bunch of people, things start flying by so
too
fast.
fast.
And also a lot of Twitter is when you build a 140 character cap into everything, you tend to have the world's shortest attention span. Why would you click on the link to get the article if somebody's done an unbelievably clever 140 character spiel that encapsulates the rest of the 3,000 word screed? It's a peculiar environment to try to make, to use as a promotional tool or a tool to drive use.
That's a structural problem, though. What are you going to do that can fix that? I mean, you're kind of tied to 140 characters.
Which brings us back to the idea of them being bought and integrated into something else, but hopefully not becoming the next Orkut.
Or the next Google
feel like
Plus.
Plumbing to me. I mean, to me, Twitter is like it's like sort of not sexy but very essential. It's sort of like almost the plumbing of the social layer of the internet, and in that way, I think it may be around for a long time if Twitter plays it right, either by itself or as part of another company.
That's what we used to say when it first started. It was the internet's dial tone almost. It was the carrier that carried the conversations on the internet. And I have to say, I still to this day, if somebody dies, if there's a story breaking, I go to Twitter, weirdly enough. Maybe that's just because it's a habit, but I go right to Twitter. That's where the conversation
for breaking news.
Yeah.
That's standing for that.
Now, you don't stay there and you don't get, but if you want to know what's going on, when Ferguson was hot, Twitter was where it was, you would find out about it. Probably better than CNN. In fact, for a long time, CNN would just report Twitter until they got anything better, till AP had it. Well, that would be sad. I mean, I don't know why I so closely associate you with Twitter, Merlin, but I do.
Well, originally I was a very early adopter.
Yeah,
I mean,
you were in it before anybody.
I was one of the very, very first users, and then I demanded they take this is back when it was just texts and SMS, and I was getting SMSs at 5 a.m. about somebody's great run, and I was like, get me out of this. That's back when it was just Twitter. But no, I've enjoyed it a lot. I've met a lot of really good friends through it. And I don't have anything really to offer here except the most obvious kinds of observations, which is, what makes Twitter great is all the stuff that you can easily corrupt by trying to, I don't want to say by trying to make money with it, but there's so many things where even just a teeniest bit of corruption about the simplicity of Twitter totally screws up huge aspects of why people like it. I mean, I think the thing that has made Twitter are just the fact the rules are simple, right? You get 140 characters, and of course that's changed. Now there's cards and there's different stuff in and out of band that I'll add more flexibility, but the rules are still pretty simple. You follow who you want, they follow you if they want. There's 140 characters, and you get to decide how much you want to be involved in any aspect of it. Like, why is Twitter different from email? Because you don't really have to read Twitter in the same way that you have to read your email. And like you say, I mean, for us, it's like, if we have the slightest inkling whether there might be an earthquake, well, that'll be on SF Gate in 2 hours, after some celebrity bikini story. But like, if I want to find out there's an earthquake, I'll go straight to Twitter. I guess all I'm saying is like, and over time, I think they've actually done a pretty good job of not screwing that up in 1,000 ways they could have screwed it up. That sounds like I'm damning them with faint praise. I'm really happy. The reason I'm still there, and the reason my friends are still there, is it has not been corrupted in a super weird way. Yeah. But like you say, when you get these kind of weird mystery meat things with like, did I really follow that person? Like, why is this here? What does this mean? I don't know what the answer is. I have to say, as I sit here, I don't understand why Google hasn't bought them 3 times over. It just seems like the most obvious fit in the world. So many of the folks at Twitter are Google alumna. And I guess I'm just kind of blown away that hasn't happened yet. I'm surprised they've made it this long.
Why would Google want them?
It's remember the thing about the glue and the conversation and holding it together? Yeah, but
what is Google's business? Google's business is organizing all the world's data. That's one of the things they say. They did try to do a social network to get more social signals with Google+. That was a flop.
And Google Buzz and
Orkut.
Google Wave and many other things.
Yeah. So maybe Twitter would add, they've just started to include Twitter results in the Google search, right? I
mean, Twitter is by definition real time, and I think Google is interested in real time and thinks of itself as not having aced real time yet.
That's true.
That might be appealing to them. Okay,
well, we've decided. Google, buy them.
Done.
That was easy.
Next issue.
Do you still post funny stuff on Twitter, Merlin? Hot Dogs Ladies was like
I guess that's up to other people to do.
But Hot Dogs Ladies is a great account to follow. That's Merlin, because it's just so fun and funny. I asked because Steve Martin, who was posting for a while really funny stuff on Twitter, decided that wasn't worth it.
Ditto for Louis C.K., ditto for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And, it's it can be, boy, if something happens on the wrong day and you get in somebody's sights, it can be really weird. The internet creates a lot of distance between us in a way that, on the one hand, it can seem so intimate, and the next minute it seems so distant and hostile. But that's exactly, again, the reason why I like it. Nobody has to use Twitter the same way. No two people have to use it that way. And for folks like me, it really, the constraints of Twitter are what made it interesting. Like app.net should have been a giant hit, but I don't want to see something with that many characters. I like this, and then, and if you want to follow people who are doing like my commentary, part 7 of 85, it's like, I don't follow that, but if you want to, that works great for some people.
Mark Andreessen is like that. I mean, he'll number his tweets so that you can read them in sequential order.
That's, I can't believe that guy was a programmer. That doesn't even make any sense.
It's so strange.
God, what an odd person. But anyway, but that's the beauty part. So I don't know. I hope it sticks around. I hope it stays good. It's, I hope that people can continue making apps for it, because I know nobody cares about this tiny percentage of nerds that have been using it for a long time. But me and all of my friends are really, we talk a lot about things like being able to keep using a third-party app like Twitterific or Tweetbot or whatever.
Yeah.
The Twitter app has gotten a lot better, and I do use it a lot.
I find myself using the website more than I would have expected. Not on mobile, obviously, but
it works. It works well. The quoting thing works. So I don't know. It's been so fun for so long, and it's one of those things where it's almost like a BBS, where I feel like I've met, or a user group, something that like I met so many people through these kinds of things, and in a way that felt very pure in a lot of ways. Like, yeah, sure, you're seeing like this certain performance version of a person, but that's how I got to know the guys in You Look Nice today. Like, that's how I've met so many people that have become my really good friends.
And by the way, to answer my own question, you still post very funny stuff on Twitter. I'm just reading through your feed. I
can nominate many much funnier people to follow, but I stand by the fact that we're all just holding our breath for the day when something comes along that makes it just not fun to use anymore. And I haven't gotten that yet.
No, I haven't either, actually.
And also, I've been fortunate, like I'm glad to see them beefing up stuff. You mentioned maybe in the show notes, we talk about the block list stuff.
Yeah.
It's a shame that we have to do that with such a blunt instrument, but that's, for some folks out there, that's real important.
Yeah, we've had our share of trolling. I haven't left. It's still worth it. But what I would like to do is just follow the people you follow. So that I can
so it's like the opposite. That's good.
So I get your experience. I want your experience of Twitter. Because that's really it.
I'll come up with a list. I'll have 5 good names to follow by you.
Are you at Outside Lands right now?
Oh, yeah. Right there. Yeah. One, please.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, I do actually, speaking of that, I wouldn't mind talking about the horror that Reddit has gone through in the last few days and wondering if maybe it's the end for Reddit, thanks to the lovely folks of the internet. And there's lots more to talk about. We got a jam-packed show and a great team to do it. Here from Dylan Tweney is here from VentureBeat. Great to have him. Editor-at-large from TechThing, my buddy, my old pal, Mr. Patrick Norton. And, of course, the technologizer, Harry McCracken, and Merlin Mann. See, if you're a basketball player, I could do that when you come out. And
I should do that. I'll start playing basketball.
Why don't you pick that up?
Can I ask you guys a question? When do you guys do your bathroom break?
Now.
Is that right?
Yep, everybody.
Am I the only one that takes a bathroom break on podcasts?
No.
In fact, like Howard Hughes here. I'm surrounded by bottles.
Do you actually formalize that? Do you have that formalized on the shows that you do? That like, okay, after an hour, we got to do a bathroom break?
Every relationship is different. You get a different comfort level. You get a man diaper.
Now would be a good time. Get your astronaut diapers out. It's time for a break. You two in the studio audience, I won't take offense. Our show today brought to you by lynda.com. Lynda.com. We love lynda.com. It's for problem solvers, for people the curious, not just curious people, but the curious people. Look, I think the human brain, the human animal is really designed to learn. And what better place than lynda.com? 3,000 incredible on-demand video courses. Yesterday we had Burt Monroy on the show, and he did the thing that he does every week on lynda.com. He explains amazing Photoshop tips and tricks. And unlike watching it on the new screensavers, you can pause, Bert, you can read the transcripts, you can search it, you can get work stuff, little work. So he's doing, I love what he does. If you're interested in photography, lynda.com just added a new weekly series, The DIY Photographer. That's Joseph Linaschke. He's really good. He talks about how to make your own macro lens for a few bucks. There are courses on exploring photography, exposure and dynamic range, Lightroom 6, Lightroom CC Essential training, up and running with Google Photos, and the best Photoshop training in the world, because Lynda gets the people who really do this for a living and the best teachers. They give you transcriptions. And you know what's great? You subscribe to this, and you got the run of the site, everything on the site for a low monthly fee. It's really a great deal. Watch and learn from the best. Stream thousands of courses on demand. Learn on your own schedule at your own pace. Classes are structured so you can watch them in any way you want, from start to finish or a bit at a time. Take notes as you go. Refer to them later on the site. Download tutorials and watch them on the go on your iOS or Android device. Take them on the plane with you. Create playlists. This is great. Whether it's for work or for fun, you've got to have a Lynda subscription. Actually, a lot of businesses do. We certainly do for our employees. I want you to visit Lynda, lynda.com/twit2. 10 days free. Plenty of time to really take a look at all of this. 10 days free. Lynda, lynda.com/twit and the number 2. We're big fans. I know you will be too. Lynda.com. So as everybody trickles back, that's probably not the right word to use.
Language, wording, phrasing.
I feel really bad for Ellen Pao in so many ways. She is just, so now she's run into a buzzsaw. Reddit, which has been, on the one hand, kind of famous for free speech, and yet there are Reddit subreddits there that are just horrific. They decided to kill 3 of the worst, some fat-shaming sites. And then the trolls basically clobbered Reddit for doing it. putting, trolling content all over it. I suppose they'll get tired and move on. I don't know why they're so upset. If you have a site or subreddit about making fun of people who are fat, speaking as a fat person, that's hurtful.
Yes.
It's shameful. Should it be censored? Did Reddit go too far? I'm sorry, Patrick. I shouldn't. Come on, Patrick. How do you feel about Gamergate while we're at it?
No. My problem is my belief in the Bill of Rights and the First Amendment.
Yeah, but you
runs face to face into my issue with people being delete expletives. This is a family podcast still.
But Reddit's a business. It's not a government. It's not the government censorship. The Bill of Rights does not protect you against censor. In our chat room, if I want to kick somebody out for what they say, I can do it. No. It's not against the Bill of Rights.
Free speech says you can be a scumbag as loud as you want. You just
the government can't do anything about it.
Yeah, I can, but I don't have to listen to you, and you don't have to be on my forums. But it's funny because I've always thought of Reddit as having one of the nicer online audiences.
I love Reddit.
Right, and this
is it becoming 4chan?
I don't think it's becoming 4chan, but I think a small group of people can do a lot of damage if they have no time and a lot of anger.
Yeah.
So these guys who ran this fat shaming site, they all ran over to some other site that they think is better than Reddit because it promised not to censor anybody for anything at any time, and they immediately crashed its servers because it wasn't ready for the demand.
They were too fat.
So then they started like, okay, we got to raise some money for this site, whatever it's called, and they're starting to like, come on, send us some Bitcoin, and they're all running around going like, oh wait, how does Bitcoin work again? How do I get a wallet?
Well, that would be the ideal solution, though. If Reddit doesn't want them around, go somewhere else. The internet's a big fat place, and you can go anywhere.
What it turns out is like it's actually maybe not so easy to run a site like Reddit and not have the servers crash with all the volume and have the upvoting works smoothly and have it be there when you want it. And so actually it turns out there is sort of a trade there. There's an exchange. Like you come to our site and, we're going to set up some very minimal but pretty permissive rules. And in exchange, you get to use the site and it won't crash and there's not too much advertising and it'll be awesome. And these people are like, no, I want to be able to say whatever I want. And,
they're babies.
And if you don't like that, we're going to, say screw you and leave. Yeah. Like, okay, fine. You can leave.
One thing that makes this challenging in any growing community is, if you ask anybody about what they believe in, everybody's going to say something that sounds really good. You're going to say, yeah, I believe in free speech, because we do. I think part of the question becomes, I'll speak for myself. There was a time, for example, where I decided on a pretty popular site of mine back in the day that I just I couldn't do the comment thing anymore. People were actually, by and large, fantastic and really great. And some of the best commenters in the world came to 43 Folders. It was a great community. We had a forum. But I kind of got to a point where I think a lot of people get to, which is you get kind of damned by your own success in some ways, where once a place gets big enough, there's going to be a whole bunch of different people there. You got whole different scale issues. Go talk to Matt Howey, talk to anybody who's tried to run a Rusty or anybody who's tried to run a big site. And you have fundamentally different problems when you add a zero or a couple zeros to the number of people that are out there. Yeah. Here's I think one problem that's the heart of this. This does not solve the problem, but I think it helps to identify the problem. If you've got a site that you and 3 of your friends write for, let's say you share a Tumblr, there's this sense of what I'm going to call the living room effect, where you go, oh, this is our place. This is our living room, and we don't drop a deuce on the couch. We treat this as a place that we're going to have respect for. You're welcome.
It's the best take on the tragedy of the commons ever.
We don't even have to put up signs saying, please don't pinch a loaf on the couch. We don't even need a sign for that. We just know. The problem is when you get to a place that has 10,000 or 20,000 or however many thousand people, everybody still feels like it's their living room. So on the one hand, there's one group of people who say, hey, can we try to use a coaster here and take care of this? And other people going, you can't tell me what to do in my own house. Because if you listen to what's behind what a lot of those folks are saying, whether I personally agree with them or not, it's the same sentiment we've heard from a lot of people, which was, we heard this with Dig however many years ago. Yep. Hey, we're the ones who made this site. And so, being provocative about telling us what we can do here is beyond the pale from their point of view. Because now it's our living room. It's your living room. You can't just call this your place by fiat. We're the ones who built it. You would not even have anybody to throw off of here if it weren't for us. So, like I say, I don't think that solves the problem, but I think it helps frame the question. Whenever we try to understand how somebody feels about these things, it helps to remember that everybody thinks someplace is their living room.
And Reddit, more than most places, was defined by having virtually no censorship, although little by little over the years, they've ratcheted it up a little bit. A few years ago, they allowed stuff on Reddit that was way worse than fat shaming, and then they got rid of that,
Right.
and now they're doing this.
Well, Harry, actually, I think there's censorship is rampant on Twitter. It's the moderators of the subreddits that
On
are
Reddit.
busy censoring.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the fact that Reddit is almost like a confederation more than one place.
Right.
The subreddits are run by different people with different rules, and the stuff they run, they feel is theirs rather than part of this large company controlled by Condé Nast.
It's kind of a challenge though for them because it is Condé Nast. I mean, they've distanced it enough so that they can say, well, it's not exactly us. What do you do if you're Reddit? I mean, you don't. Maybe it was a mistake to censor. Maybe you block illegal stuff, because then it's not you making the rules. You just say, hey, it's illegal. We can't do that.
It is if you're harassing individuals, that's is
illegal.
an issue.
Yeah.
Harassing groups of people is a little bit different.
Right.
Stuff that's illegal or borderline illegal is different from stuff which is merely offensive.
Yeah.
So I am curious, like 3 or 4 years from now, where will the bar be? Will the bar
Right.
go higher and higher to a point where anything that is created by jackasses or which reasonable people might think is unpleasant is no longer allowed? I do feel like when all is said and done, it's the internet. So if you're on Reddit and you're unhappy with Reddit, fine. Go. You can create your own site. You can find somewhere else. It's not censorship. There should never be a time when people who want to be jackasses can't create their own place to be jackasses.
Yeah.
But build your own damn site.
We need to cheer up a little bit here. Let me show some videos of robots failing. What? It just makes me happy to see the robots not doing so well.
This is how they lull us into a false sense of security.
Yeah,
This is
somebody
exactly
said
how
that
it
if you
starts.
keep laughing at robots, you're going to regret it in a few years.
They're like crows. They remember.
Because that's right. Everybody who watched those videos on YouTube,
Yeah.
like that the record of you watching
They'll
that
know.
video is going to be stored on Google somewhere, and they will know
Yeah.
when Skynet comes.
I
coming for us.
I did admire. Let's show the. This is from the DARPA challenge. They were trying to get humanoid-like robots to do things like diffuse nuclear power plants. This is kind of based on the tsunami and earthquake that destroyed Fukushima. But some of these robots it's hard.
No.
If you're a robot to really. Oh. That's my favorite. And what's great is the audience is cheering the robot on. So you got to kind of admire them. The winning the challenge was a course of 8 challenges. These are autonomous robots. They're not remote controlled robots. They're autonomous. I think 6 of the 8 they knew about programmers knew about ahead of time. 2 were just random. You didn't know. They had to drive a car. They had to open a door. They had to turn a valve. The kinds of things a robot would need to do to defuse the nuclear power plant at Fukushima. But the South Korean robot won a $2 million prize. Are you sad? Is it sad?
I think this is depressing. I think it's so sad.
But it was so
What's
funny.
weird is
the
falling
first
over backwards in front of a doorway seems to be a really common problem with those robots.
Well, yeah,
what is it
but I
about
mean, like,
doorways? They're like, whoa.
But I was at the first DARPA challenge, the vehicular one, and it was hysterical because like I joked like I'm going to get run over, and literally 30 seconds after I said that, a car comes out of the gate, makes a hard right turn, and bangs into the Jersey barrier, literally 4 feet from where I was standing as I'm backing up, taking a shot because television. But it was and the next year they finished.
And now we're talking about never having to drive again. And only 11 years later, it's amazing.
But it's like they look ridiculous, but it's you get a bunch of robot developers pissed off. They do really good work to catch up and develop as quickly as possible.
So the robot from MIT did not win because of a minor kind of a user error. So one of the things here, let's show this, because one of the things that the robot had to do was drive a car, and when they programmed it, and they knew this ahead of time, they forgot to tell the robot to turn off the car before it got out. The robot stumbled a little bit Well, you'll see. But this is the robot. It's made by Boston Dynamics, the Google company that makes the crazy dogs that run around. 6'4", 400 pounds. Go ahead. You can play the audio track on this.
The things we want it to do in terms of objects that it can perceive in the environment. And then that becomes an input to an optimization algorithm that runs on the robot that figures out all the details.
This is autonomous.
That's
The way
crazy.
the competition works is the robot is out in the field and it has to do several tasks, including driving a car and a variety of manipulation tasks. Our intention was to get all 8 points in this run. Unfortunately, we did not do that. There was a user error on our part, and we missed one of the things we should have done. And so the robot began getting out of the car while its driving controller was still engaged, and that caused some bad foot behavior, which ultimately tipped the robot onto its face.
Oh, you can hear the crowd though go, oh.
The right wrist broke. It broke the
watch.
ball a little bit, but it snapped. But the software and the operator, they're smart enough that they were able to adapt.
I think the way that we adapted and went off script is really a testament to the software tools and to the
continued
people
on.
that are behind the robot.
And watch its wrist. It's broken. It's.
I mean, really, I couldn't be prouder of how the team handled that. I mean, I'm heartbroken that our robot fell, but the performance we put on after that, I think, is...
It's like a great athlete getting hurt, injured, and then completing the field.
These robots are
There's
amazing.
something really touching about the way that robot's legs shake as it's getting out of the car. It's like, oh,
Isn't it?
I don't know. I feel for it.
Maybe because they look like humans, even though it's a 6'4", 400-pound human, you feel some sympathy for it, and the crowd's cheering.
Is that a rule that it has to be bipedal?
So it doesn't have to be, but most of them were because it has to go places a human could go.
Right.
So there were a couple that were more platform-like, but ultimately it has to really be human-shaped.
It's such a high center of gravity, though.
Right. Oh, it's a terrible design for a robot. Absolutely.
The winning one kind of rolls around on its knees.
Yeah.
So it's like a nice low rolling platform most of the time.
Right.
But then when it needs to, it can kind of stand up on two legs and walk, which I thought was pretty clever.
Yeah, that's a good solution. Because you got to go through doors, you got to open doorknobs, you got to do things that a human in a human situation can do.
I
I
have a
think
nightmare of stairs.
the point though you make is excellent, because 11 years ago the car went straight for you. But now 11 years later we're saying it's safer for a robot to drive than for a human to drive. 11 years from now, I don't know what these robots will be doing, but I'm sure I'm going to get punished for
I
laughing.
was going to say burying us.
Speaking of happy stories, the Comet lander has woken up. Is it Philae? Is that how we pronounce it? Seems like that's not a really good. Philae. You remember that it had a little bit of a problem.
All right.
It bounced when it landed on the comet. We had sent it to explore the comet. It bounced when it landed on the comet. And instead of landing in sunlight where it could charge up its batteries, solar batteries, it landed in a shade. But the good news is Philae is back in contact because the comet's moved, the sun's moved, and all of a sudden
It woke up.
It woke up and sent a bunch of data back, and it's alive. And in fact, now they're thinking this might have been serendipitous because we'll be able to get closer to the sun than we would have if it had been in the bright sunlight, and might get some very interesting observations. So again, technology, mind-boggling. 7 months after silence from Philae.
The Twitter feed's pretty awesome.
Oh, he talks, yeah, or she. Hello, Earth, can you hear me? She says. That's her first tweet.
Robots are the new dogs. They've made us care again.
They made us care again. We love them.
So the IBO is just ahead of its time.
Yeah. I feel very positive about our future now.
I have to say the photos of that thing landing on the comet when it landed 6 or 7 months ago were my mind was blown. It's like we're landing on a frigging comet, people. It was amazing.
I got chills.
Yeah.
I was and when did they John is our resident space expert. How long before it landed did they launch? I mean, this was a very complicated thing. And there it is on a comet. Just amazing. So it's alive. Hello, Earth. Can you hear me?
Over a decade, I think.
I think it
They
took
built
10
it
years. They launched it, and then 10
Yeah.
years later, they got the. It's incredible.
It's amazing.
It's incredible.
There wasn't even Twitter when it was launched.
Wow. How did they live? But fortunately, before Philae left, she left instructions to create a Twitter account.
How are things with my MySpace account?
Oh, Philae, we have so much to talk about.
Are you sitting down, Philae?
I've got some bad news for you. Let's take a break and have more great conversation with a great panel. Merlin Mann, Harry McCracken, Patrick Norton, Dylan Tweney, and you, my friends, you, the fabulous audience. Our show today brought to you by Braintree Payments. We love Braintree, and you know what most users do, and you may not know it, but you've used it. Braintree is the payments API used by Uber and Airbnb and Hotel Tonight and Living Social and GitHub. And in just 10 lines of code, you can add Braintree to your mobile app and take payments from everywhere. Credit cards, PayPal, Venmo, even Bitcoin. Even Apple Pay. Everybody wants Apple Pay, right? And this is so important, the experience, the kind of, I guess they call it the one-touch experience of Uber, for instance, where you arrive, you get out of the car, and Braintree just handles it. That's made Uber successful, and it can make your app just as successful. By the way, secure. The last thing you want to do is write the security code. You got other things to do. Your customers will love it. They already know how to use it, and it's a full-stack payment solution for all payment types. Superior fraud protection, customer service, fast payouts. Let Braintree do the heavy lifting, and you just reap the reward. In fact, your first $50,000 of transactions are fee-free when you go to BraintreePayments.com/twit. They have a sandbox so you can check out the V.0 SDK. BraintreePayments.com/twit. Just like GitHub, they'll scale with you from your first dollar to your billions. BraintreePayments.com/twit. YouTube is building a Twitch. Remember when Twitch was on the market, everybody thought Google's YouTube was going to get it.
I wrote a post explaining why that would be such a smart idea. And
brilliant. And then who got it? Amazon. I don't know why Amazon wanted it. They obviously bid the right price, and the guys at Justin.tv are very happy. But remember, that doesn't mean YouTube can't build their own. And in fact, they say this summer they are going to launch a YouTube built for gamers. YouTube Gaming, an app and dedicated website for all of those Let's Play videos. Do your kids watch Let's Play videos yet?
No, my kids
They're too little.
They have some access. They have access to games on the iPhone or the iPad, but we don't really do consoles in my family.
Yeah,
at least not yet. But it's
I get calls every week on the radio show from 12-year-olds, different 12-year-olds. Invariably, what they want to know is, well, I play Minecraft, and I would like to know how to make a video that I can put on YouTube about Minecraft. It's like it's like being, my generation. We all wanted to be Air Jordan. They all want to be PewDiePie.
Yeah,
of all people.
It just takes over. It's taken over everything. There was life before Minecraft, and now there's Minecraft.
Yeah.
All my daughter does is make houses, glass houses, and bacon all day.
No, does she do Minecraft?
Potatoes. Oh, she's just playing in creative mode. But man, is it ever cool!
How old is she now?
7.5.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I can't believe it.
But it's fun. Like, I get it. Like, when she has a friend come over and they play in the little, like, both on iPads, like, it's really fun. This is one of those things where, like, I feel like I missed like 2 decades, because the last video game thing I was into was the Atari 2600 back in the 1920s, like Moon Patrol.
Moon Patrol.
But that was my
Star
last
Raiders.
Thing. And I've just been like, oh, you kids and your video games, it's never going to amount to anything. And now it's life. Like, everything is video games now. And I realize now it's the first thing I apart from my physical condition, where I actually do feel like an old man.
There you go.
Oh man. Dun, 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 dun.
When we were kids, hyperspace sounded like this. And we were happy.
That tune has been in my head since like 1983.
Now you could play that on your, I don't know, what's the dumbest computer you got?
What a great game.
Raspberry Pi. You could probably
Oh,
Really?
so
You remember us too, huh?
I haven't played it in like 25 years, but I want to right now.
We got one in the basement.
Although the arcade version is the one that resonates with me, not the 2600, because we never had 2600.
That's very primitive, too, compared
But
to
you
the
can
arcade.
still play Yar's Revenge. Yar's Revenge is still a lot of fun.
Well, Minecraft, in a way, if you think about it, is a tip of the hat to that era because of the 8-bit. In fact, when I first saw Minecraft, I said, who would want to play this?
It ain't about the visual splendor.
It's not about the visuals.
It's the ultimate take. It's like I love it because my son just discovered it, but part of me is like, this is Legos from hell, and I'm going to lose him.
Yeah.
It's Legos. It is.
Well,
Yeah.
like creative mode for like a little kid is it is super creative. I'll look over and like a few minutes later, like she's built this palace. She's got pigs and pens. She's shooting things with fire and making bacon. And I don't know how she picked this up, but it's insanely creative. I mean,
We have Lisa's son is 12. Of course, he's into Minecraft too, and he knows about rubies and diamonds. And I said, what do you know about rubies? As well, if you combine, this is what kids know of the world now. Did you read though the very sad article? Where did I read that about when the Mojang employees found out about the sale to Microsoft? Maybe you wrote it. You write the best articles.
I didn't write it, but I read it, and it resonated with me because a couple of years ago, I did a big story on Minecraft where I went to Stockholm and hung out at Mojang and saw all those people working at the little desks.
And they were, what are they, IKEA desks?
It's a really nice office. So.
Yeah. But they always were told that we don't want to be big. They were not paid well, but you're part of a team.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, Marcus Pearson, Notch, and a couple of other people are raking in the dough. Notch kept most. There it is. It's Wired, of course.
Yeah.
The unlikely story of Microsoft's surprise Minecraft buyout, and they're quoting in particular one of the Mojang employees who was told not to tell anybody, and what a difficult thing that was for him, and how sad everybody really was. And of course, management just took off with $1 billion, $2 billion, $3 billion, just went off, and that was that.
I wish I had figured out that Minecraft was a likely acquisition target, because when I went there, I talked to Notch, and he mainly talked about how sick he was of the whole thing, and how he had no interest in it whatsoever.
Yeah, see? You see?
And if you're sick of it, then sure, you have no problem selling it.
Yeah. And he, of course, outbid Jay-Z and Beyonce for that $70 million house in Los Angeles that has its own candy room. So that's really, that's success.
Leo, is it for making candy? Is it for storing candy?
Just eating candy.
Oh, it's just for eating candy. It's like I thought having like a present wrapping room was big, but a candy eating room.
Well, I don't think Notch should eat much more candy, but he does apparently. Let me see if I can find pictures. It was a $70 million mansion. The candy room itself, $200,000. And there's a kind of a decent image of the candy room. It's not really a room. It's more like a candy foyer, really.
Oh, sure.
Or a candy vestibule.
That's more reasonable.
And who put that in there?
Well, the house was a spec house, so it was built by a developer and furnished in some of the oddest ways you've ever seen.
Well, it was that like the developer got all these different designers and places in LA to build rooms.
Yeah.
So it is disjointed from hell. I mean, you turn a corner and it's
just weird.
Yeah.
But Notch likes it. I wonder if Notch has remodeled, or if I bet you he kept the candy room or the candy vestibule. Do you think though that he kept this bedspread?
Oh yeah.
Just weird. There's a giant hand grenade in the living room. Did you see that?
No.
Some very odd stuff.
The conference room at Mojang in Stockholm, where I interviewed Notch, is basically has a Goldfinger theme. It's everything in the entire room is done in gold, and they want it to be as garish as possible, so it would look like the conference room of a James Bond villain.
Wow.
Didn't they have oil paintings commissioned of all their employees?
That was fantastic. Yeah, they went to this Chinese oil painting mill, And there are all these unbelievably garish paintings of everybody, some of them like in hunting garb or in Elizabethan attire.
I want to do that.
Well, so Notch got the $1 billion, but the employees at least get to, a nice oil
Each
painting
of them
for it.
got
Well,
to
that
take
was-
home their
Well,
oil
right?
painting. Yeah.
That was the big thing in the Wired articles. They talked about how, like, well, we don't pay you much, but you got to go to Game Developers Conference.
Right.
We don't pay you much, but Notch decided to take everybody to, wherever he took them for a week's vacation. I mean, it was nobody had any equity. Nobody had any much of a salary, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, well. I noticed, though, that Notch now can sit in a chair much like my own. So there's something to be said for that. Those are Restoration Hardware lamps. I recognize those, and the chairs. I recognize those. Maybe our set designer did one of the rooms in that mansion.
I had no idea there were so many places to go to buy Chinese manufactured custom artwork.
I want to get that.
$79, portrait-painting.com.
Wow. I would like to get that for our employees. Here's the giant blue hand grenade at the end of the bar.
I like it.
There, yeah.
It might be less costly to just bring in somebody from the boardwalk that like draws them in silhouette kicking a soccer
Oh, that's a
ball or
good
something.
idea.
I think
That'd be
they'd still
great
really,
idea.
they'd enjoy that, Leo. You
That'd be
like soccer?
hysterical.
No. Well, I would have you kicking a soccer ball.
And they're only like $5 each, right?
I bet it's like domain name registration. I bet you buy 50 of those and the price goes down to like $3
Shop
each.
around. The
You like
guy's
roller
gonna.
skating? No, not really. Oh, I'm gonna have you roller skating.
Oh, this is nice. You'd want this, I think, in your living room.
That's classy.
What the? Oh, and a book about 007 makes it all okay. Wow. I think we're going to take a quick break because we're running out of time, and I'm sure Merlin has to pee again. So let's do that, and then we'll come back and cover kind of the breadcrumbs, the shake, the stuff that falls to the bottom of the. Merlin got it. Thank you, Merlin.
got it.
You got it.
I'm hip with the
popcorn
kids
kernels.
and Swisher
Popcorn,
Sweets.
the little unpopped kernels at the bottom.
I'm aware of cultural trends.
Look, bunt cake.
Our show today.
You guys like Herbert Hoover? Huh?
Our show. I don't even get that.
No, I'm just making cultural references.
Cultural references.
Show of hands. Anybody like bicycles? Yeah, that's
Cultural.
right.
There you go.
Back to you, Leo.
That's. Our show today brought to you by Stamps.com. I bet you Notch somewhere in there with the candy room, the carbine rifle, the giant blue glass hand grenade, has a Stamps.com USB scale and a computer hooked up to the Stamps.com account because anytime he needs to mail candy to anywhere in the world, that's
In the mailing room?
in the mailing room.
The mailing room.
What good is a house without a mailing room?
I don't know. And what goes a mailing room without stamps.com?
If you have a mailing room in your business, are you an Etsy seller, Amazon seller, eBay seller, if you sell stuff, I keep getting stuff with hand-licked stamps all over the front, and then they wrap it in brown paper and twine. And I look at it each time and think there's probably a bomb in there, but I open it anyway. Don't be that guy. Start sending stuff via Stamps.com. You get nice professional-looking labels with barcodes, your company's logo. It automatically gets the return address, the mailing address from the website. It'll even automatically fill out international customs forms. It'll handle certified mail, return receipt. In fact, if you've got certified mail, it'll send an email to the recipient saying, here's the code. It makes you look like a professional, mailing enterprise. And that's what you want. If you're in business, you want to look good. Plus, it's better than a postage meter. It'll save you like 50% more than less than a postage meter because you don't have to buy special inks. And when the stamp prices go up, you don't have to bring it in to get it recalibrated. It just all happens automatically. All the stuff you want to do to look more professional, to save money. You get discounts you can't even get at the post office. And here's the best part. You don't have to go to the post office. A uniformed employee of the federal government will come to your place and pick up that package. In fact, there's even a button. It's called a mailman. There's even a button on the site that says, get the mail carrier here to pick up. I got a package. It's so cool. Stamps.com. I got a great no-risk trial for you. When you click the microphone in the upper right-hand corner there, and you enter the offer code TWIT, TWIT. Look at that microphone on the air. There's a nice guy. Leo Laporte, you'll see my shining face, and you'll get this $110 bonus offer, including the digital scale, $55 in free postage you can use over the first few months of your account. Of course, a free trial and activity kit and more. Stamps.com. apple.com. Just do me a favor. Click the microphone in the upper right-hand corner. Use the offer code TWIT. We had a great week. If you missed any of it, take a look at the week gone by.
Previously on Twit.
Excuse me, my watch has told me I need to stand. I'll be right back.
Just wave your arm around, Leo. That's what I do.
You cheat your watch?
All the time.
The new screensavers.
My Wi-Fi sucks.
One of the things I've been playing around with, the heat mapper. This is free software.
If you could find that FBI surveillance van, I'd be very grateful.
I'm pretty sure I know which corner of the building it is down in the basement.
They're in the building?
Oh, yeah.
All about Android.
Apple still gets its jab in on Android users because though there will be a 3-month free trial for iOS and web users of Apple Music, that will not be the case for Android users.
Security Now.
We have to talk about the breach the U.S. government suffered. The 4.1 million records were not encrypted. Quote, encryption and data obfuscating techniques are new capabilities that we're building into our database.
That we just discovered.
Twit.
It's too new.
For justice.
You know, we didn't cover the big break-in on the Office of Personnel Management. We talked about it yesterday on the new screensavers.
It's just so depressing.
So crazy.
We're now thinking 14 million records of every federal employee, Social Security numbers. I was talking to somebody on the radio show who said our union rep. See, the problem is the federal government is kind of downplaying. Oh, it was only 1 million records. They're denying that security clearance forms were leaked or stolen by these hackers. But the guy said our union rep came to us and they said, you get 2 years of fraud protection, and everybody, you just assume your social, your driver, everything. And the worst thing is, what if you applied for a federal job, were investigated by the FBI, they found out something really horrible, they didn't hire you, but that information is in that database, and now the hackers have it. You didn't even get the job. Just horrific. The president, though, good news, is considering financial sanctions against the attackers. So that's good news. How he even knows who they are, I don't know. They say it's China. They also mentioned that the Office of Personnel Management did have good, strong security, something called Einstein Protect, but it didn't work. The break-in occurred at the end of last year. The number, like I said, has now gone up to 14 million people. The Einstein system failed. According to the Wall Street Journal, this is my favorite part, Einstein didn't discover the breach. It was discovered during a sales demonstration by a security company named SciTech Services. Hey, we'd like to show you our new product.
SciTech Services actually has since said that it was not during a product demonstration.
Oh, okay.
That it was, they discovered it in April 2015.
But SciTech discovered it.
Yeah, and notified CERT and the FBI.
Yeah, they were told not to say, hey, by the way, could you not mention that this was during a sales presentation?
I don't think you ever want to name any technology Einstein, though. That's just asking for trouble.
Lots of course, lots of cover-up right now. Everybody's saying, no, this isn't true. But it's just a scary thought.
With every new Snowden-esque revelation, the thing that always goes through my head is, first of all, wow, that's so sad that this is happening, that this information is being recorded. I know this is different, but I mean, with the Snowden announcements, every time some new piece of information comes out, I think, oh my gosh, I hope the people who are so good at gathering all that information are really good at securing it.
Yeah.
Because,
apparently they're not.
Well, I mean, it's you think about, like, the first scene from Deadwood, when they go and want to hang the guy at the jail.
Right.
It's like, well, the jail's not that secure. You can still get stuff out of there. And it's like, if you don't really, really, really need to be collecting that stuff, my gosh, please do something responsible with it. And it's just to have that sitting around. I guess what I'm trying to say is all the stuff that seems like they just kind of skimmed from all of our information over the last few years, like that's all just sitting somewhere.
It's
just
nothing.
Sitting somewhere. It's so depressing.
Here's something that's not going to be hacked. Grand Rapids, Michigan. 19 schools, public schools in Grand Rapids, Michigan. The heating and cooling system is controlled by an Amiga from the 80s. The program was written by a high school student at the time. It's still running. They say if when things break, he still lives in the area. So we go and we ask him to fix it. It turns on and off the boilers. It turns on and off the heat. It has been doing this without complaint for 35 years.
There's such a lesson there, too. Which is, I guess, run everything on Amigas from now on.
bet it's secure.
Or they have a stash of Amigas. But
you know why it's secure? It's running on a 1200 baud modem. Does anybody even have a 1200 baud?
I think you can buy them on eBay. Well, a friend of mine worked for a major financial company in New York City, and at one point he was doing data verification stuff, and he had to work a lot with the engineering team. And they had this board. He kept seeing this board, and he finally goes, "What is this?" And he's like, "These are servers that we don't know the physical location of." He's like, "What do you mean?" He's like, we got all of these offices. We have offices on X number of continents. We have like 72 offices in New York City. Like, there's stuff that runs and we access it.
We just don't know where it is.
We just don't know where it is. So, all of these servers, they're in the process of migrating them to places where they know where the box is. You know what I mean? Like, and you laugh, but things accrete over time. You bring systems online, people move, things happen.
I'm groaning with familiarity. Like I'm like, if I ever lose this SFTP bookmark,
you don't know where.
I don't know where it is. What I got the IP address like memorized. Like,
no, that's a good point. I'm certainly not at the
password is to get into the password. I've locked my keys into a succession of cars in various countries. I don't know what the hell I would do.
Look at this. This is actually phenomenal. It's an Amiga 2000. There's an ad for the Amiga. I think that's the kid who programmed it. It's phenomenal. I think this is a great success story.
Home automation, 1980.
Yeah, but 19 schools. I mean, this is not trivial. This is a lot of stuff.
That's fantastic.
I love it.
That's great. Let's.
We could always make a music video for the Friends
This says something good
band.
about the Amiga company.
It does.
I feel like the very last computer on Earth may be an Amiga.
It's the cockroach of computers. It's never gonna die. We actually have an Amiga in the basement.
That company has a great future ahead of it.
You might have covered this on This Week in Computer Hardware. I never remember to plug the show you do with Ryan Shrout on our network. But it's a great show. I watch it. I love it. Did you talk about Asus maybe buying HTC?
We did not.
That's an interesting
Ryan
story.
may have. I was actually at family in town. And was not able to record the show this week.
Okay.
Which is such an odd concept, though, Asus buying HP.
HTC, not HP.
Sorry. Well, that would make a big difference.
Yeah. Well, they're both Taiwanese companies, but HTC's really struggled of late. Although, last week we talked a lot about VR. And the consensus...
Vive is just great.
The consensus seemed to be Vive was actually better than Oculus Rift.
It's really good, although Oculus just announced their hand controllers. Up until Oculus announced that, one of the coolest things about Vive was it had hand controllers.
Right.
I've turned around on VR. I'm kind of excited by it. And I have a feeling we're going to see a lot of interesting stuff, and not so far off, like this year, maybe late.
And Vive is allegedly going to ship by the end of the year, which might give it a little bit of a head start against Oculus.
Oculus is next year.
And Morpheus, Sony's system.
Yeah. I don't feel like Sony's really got a dog in the hunt, do they?
Well, that looks pretty good, too. That's the one I have not tried myself, but Oculus is amazing, and Vive is also really impressive.
I really would love to see a standard. Kind of exists now. I have the Gear VR, which is basically powered by Oculus. But I can go to a lot of different, including Google 3D stuff. I'd love to see Google's Jump, Oculus, Vive, all uses kind of, I guess it kind of is because it's basically two screens, right? But I would love to see a standard for this.
It's sort of shaping up like the console industry, where they're all competing, and there will be some experiences which are exclusive to one platform, and some companies that decide to be on every platform.
Yeah.
It's mostly going to be gaming, but there's a lot of other applications touring around, seeing the world.
Makeouts on Facebook.
Right on. Right on. Hey, we're pretty much done here. I'm cooked. You cooked, Merlin?
Are you kidding me? I'm just getting started. I still got 2 or 3 more bathroom trips in me.
I feel like Merlin, we could just turn the camera on Merlin. We've done that. I think I did that once. I walked away, and you guys just kept going. Well, am I wrong?
No, come on, Dad. We need you here.
This has happened a couple of times where just Nick Bilton and Baratunde just stayed after I left. And the show they did another hour. Anyway, it's great to see you, Merlin. I miss you. I adore you. Hot dogs, ladies, but he's doing a ton of podcasts. What do you do?
Yeah, well, it's great to be back. It's always a thrill to be here and to hang out with everybody. Thanks for having me here.
Last, anything to say about tonight? The Game of Thrones ends its season. Silicon Valley ends its season.
Oh, I love Silicon Valley.
Do you?
I really do.
I
Yeah,
do too. I feel like I'm the only one, but I think it's the best.
Game of Thrones, like Walking Dead, like I conceptually like it, but just gotta be straight up, it's just too grisly for me.
It's
I just
pretty
can't
grisly.
take it.
And it's
my
been
wife
really
wife watches Walking Dead. I can't
I don't
tolerate it.
watch
I have to leave
No,
the room.
I'm done with zombies. And
But,
frankly,
yeah.
Game of Thrones is turning into a zombie game, which is weird. But Silicon Valley, our friend Dan Lyons, fake Steve Jobs, former Newsweek writer, he worked for a week, I think, at Valleywag, is one of the writers. Actually, is a great article, great interview with him about how he became a writer. I guess he had piloted a show that was never picked up for Larry Chase and
Larry Charles.
Charles, I mean, and then Charles knew who somebody was working at the showrunners at Silicon Valley and brought him in. But he's added some verisimilitude, I feel like.
There's so many characters on that show where you're like, oh man,
I know him.
I've worked with that person for years. Like I know that person.
Yeah.
I haven't seen any of Dan's shows yet, any of the episodes he's contributed to, but last season I found really hard to watch. It was just cringeworthy and how painfully real it was.
Yeah. It is a little cringy. I agree.
Like, oh, I see that every day.
Yeah.
I don't
a
need to watch that
little
right
too
now.
close to home. Yeah. Well, we'll find out. Last episode of this. How do they wrap this season up? I'm going to go watch
I'm sure it won't be awkward at all.
No. No. Nothing awkward about that show.
Every frame more painful than the last, and just like, oh my God, this is happening every day, like all over.
That's why I like Guilfoyle. He's like the Greek chorus
Love
to this.
Guilfoyle.
Yeah, because he's that's not a problem. Patrick Norton, keep going with the tech thing. It's good, techthing.com, TEK.
Yes.
And I hear you're the host of This Week in Computer Hardware on certain
Hardware.
stations around about.
You can find that at twit.tv/Twitch.
Love that. Love having you here. Thank you, Dylan. Great to meet you and have you on for the first time. I hope you'll come back.
I'd love to.
It's really
I've
fun.
had a blast.
Yeah, venturebeat.com. He's at Dylan20 on the Twitter. What's the 20?
Well, if you mispronounce my name or you change one letter.
Oh, I get it. 20.
Instead of Tweney. Yeah.
Ah.
Dylan20. That's like my online identity.
I'm an idiot.
I did not get
I
that.
thought about changing my last name to just 2 digits, 20. I thought that would be like really futuristic and techie of me, but I never did it.
Do it. You'd be like Prince or something. No, that's so cool. DYLAN20 on the Twitter.
Yeah.
And Harry McCracken, he's the technologizer, and technologizer's the guy to follow everywhere. It's great to see you again.
Great to be here.
Thanks to all the people in the studio audience. We're nice to have you. Tickets at twit.tv if you'd like to join them for the next show. In fact, we'd love it if you'd come and visit us in the studio. It's always fun for us. But you can also watch on the internet, live.twit.tv. Actually, I'm going to stop saying that because it's now just twit.tv. Click the live button when the new site goes up on Tuesday. And I'll do a little tour of the new site at some point, probably before the show next week, something like that. Because it's good. I like what we've done. I feel good about it. It's kind of like building a super tanker, but it's done. You've done a little web design in your time, Merlin.
No, it's never finished. You just stop.
Yeah, that's what exactly.
Yeah. It's like being a parent. It's just like every day you find a new way you were wrong and didn't realize it.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
That's exactly what happened. We just, at one point, we had to stop.
Your website's done? No, I just gave up hope. Enjoy.
Did you ever work in an agile environment?
No, I'm whatever the opposite of agile is. I'm inert. I don't know how to scrum. I don't know how to retro. I don't know how to do any of that. We worked in places we didn't even have a production server, or we didn't even have a staging server. We would just edit edit files live.
Yeah,
we were cowboys.
that's the way to do it.
Yeah,
That's the way to do it.
I had somebody that thought that was an agile environment, which was great until they did things that broke our ability to.
He got the break it a lot part. He didn't get the other part. I've been scrumming every day since January, like every day since January. I'm like,
are you the? Are you the?
I'm the PO.
Wow. And you got the index cards and everything?
Yeah, everything. We get this was
stories. You do the stories.
Did
and whatnot?
user stories? Did epics? Got points.
These could all be made up terms, and I would not know. Just so you know.
It's an expensive. I've interviewed Kent Beck, the guy who created it. It's very. In fact, they do Agile in Silicon Valley. When they're doing put the little cards on the board, that's Agile.
Right. Well, congratulations. That's a big thing. My gosh,
we did a big thing.
It's so much work. It's like a Hofstadter's law. You know, everything takes longer than you think.
Yeah.
Even when you account for Hofstadter's law. It's congratulations.
It's a recursive law.
Yeah, which is also recursive.
Congratulations is probably the right thing to say.
Mazel tov.
Mazel tov and condolences. But the new site should be up soon, and we'll talk a little bit about it when it goes up. But meanwhile, twit.tv is the place to go to get the on-demand versions or to get links to your favorite podcast thing, iTunes or whatever, and you can get the show. And it'd be nice if you subscribe. That way you'd get it each and every week.
It looks really good.
You like this?
Yeah.
It's big pictures. It's all about big pictures. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time. Another Twit.
This is amazing.
Thank you.